I'm going to call to order the September 12th meeting of the Board of Trustees for the Santa Barbara Community College District. All those who wish to participate can now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will note for the record that all trustees, including our student trustee, are present this evening for the meeting. And welcome everybody to this afternoon, I guess, always goes into the night, meeting of the board. Our first item on the agenda is always a happy event, recognition of those employees of the college who have served for extended periods of time. And this evening we have 10, if I counted right, 10 employees to recognize. 4 of them are with us this evening, and I would like to, well, first of all, I just want to state that among all of those who are with us this evening, plus those who aren't, total service of 185 years. I guess if you divide that by 10, it's about 18 and a half years average. That's quite an accomplishment to have this large a group. So without further introduction, I would like to introduce Rocco Costanino. Is Rocco with us? To recognize Susan Houlihan Davis for her 25 years with the college.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Board. Thank you, Dr. Benjamin. Yes, we are here to recognize Susan Houlihan Davis, who has served for 25 years as our athletics trainer for all our athletics teams. We have one of the biggest athletic departments in the state, and hundreds of student athletes, and Susan and Joe Farias are responsible for the health and safety of all those students. Susan's not only worked 25 years in the department, it's been 25 years of late nights at 11 o'clock at night, weekends, missing time from family, working in the heat, traveling to hours to football games. It's 25 years of extreme dedication, and she's top notch and does it as good as anybody. We're lucky to have her, lucky she's been here 25 years. Thank you, Board, and congratulations, Susan. It's a tremendous accomplishment.
Next, Arturo Rodriguez is going to recognize Judith Osterhage.
It is my pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Judy Osterhage. She's been here for too many decades.
20
decades. Just 2 years ago, she was nominated by our local community as a local hero through the independent voting process. She started her career in early education, and she's now one of our lead parent trainers in our community for one of our outmost at-risk student populations. So, Dr.
And next, Barb Freeman is going to introduce Regina Reese, a lab teaching assistant for her 10 years of service.
Hi, happy to be here to recognize Regina Reese and her efforts over the last 10 years in her role as a laboratory teaching assistant in the Cartwright Learning Resources Center. Her extensive experience and deep love of technology have helped many on our campus during that time. You'll most often find her working directly with students to help solve problems, both big and small, from learning how to navigate a Canvas course shell to figuring out how to add funds to a campus card. She also works closely with our computer tutors to help them understand learning center tutoring techniques so they too can support student success. Regina genuinely enjoys working with students, and her interactions with them help to spark their curiosity and encourage their development. Her kind demeanor and efficient approach helps to calm even the most stressed or frustrated students at the start or end of the semester in particular. Obviously, we've seen this in action recently. Regina's patience is a true gift, and students often come back to visit for additional support once she's helped them solve a problem. Regina's professionalism helps to foster positive relationships with many different groups on campus. Her leadership qualities have flourished in the 5 years I've known her, and now mind you, she's been here for 10, I've known her for 5, and she's put forth a great effort to grow professionally. She's very involved in CSEA, where she acts as the chapter communications officer. In this role, she produces and sends out the award-winning monthly CSEA newsletter, the SBCC Beat, which gives her an opportunity to write articles and to showcase her amazing photography skills. She's also a union steward, and she represents classified staff on CBC and CCG. Her colleague in these efforts, Sherry Higgins, says that Regina is a very thoughtful team player. Regina's personality is cheerful, helpful, and compassionate. Whether she's helping students or serving on committees, her input is valued, and her commitment to improving campus life for all of us is admirable. She's competent without being conceited, making her an approachable and humble coworker. In addition, Regina continues to be a model for continuous learning and growth. She's worked diligently towards Career Skills Institute badges by attending many courses. She's mapped out a plan for how she'll accomplish these goals, similar to how she approaches projects in our labs. I greatly admire her enthusiasm and energy. Her collaboration with me, the other classified staff members, and with our Director of Learning Support Services has helped to build a stronger team to provide service to students, and her efforts are very much appreciated. Please join me in recognizing Regina Reese for her 10 years of service to SBCC.
And next, Jim Clark is going to recognize Jerry Thomas for his 25 years as a network specialist.
President and members of the board, and Dr. Benjamin, everyone here. I'm honored to be able to stand up here and talk about Jerry Thomas and his 25 years. He's actually been here 31 years. He did 6 years as a part-timer. He was responsible for the language lab for a small bit, and he moved on to the Learning Resource Center as what was called an ICLC at the time, which is sort of like a lab, making sure all the lab computers are taken care of. At that time, there was an Apple Talk network with really old Apple computers, which were brand new at the time. I was a new student here right about the time Jerry started. I had just graduated high school and was starting as a student here, and was amazed at the LRC and the computers in there. I spent a lot of time in that lab because it was state-of-the-art at the time. And that was back when the internet here was 56K, which is dial-up speed. And it was a connection through UCSB. And if you tried to surf the internet on that type of connection today, you would find it relatively impossible to do and incredibly frustrating. But back then it was state of the art, and we were leading edge. We were bleeding edge at that time. And the network's evolved, and Jerry's been there evolving it and making sure that it gets up to speed from the old days of coaxial cables connecting everything on a 10-base-T network and all the way up to the full duplex networking and switching we do today. He's now responsible for the majority of our network switching, our firewalls, our internet connectivity, the point-to-point air fibers that connect some of our buildings wirelessly, all of the wireless infrastructure here, a lot of the security initiatives and some user support. All of these things are things that Jerry has excelled at and has really taken ownership of and responsibility for and helped us progress. He was a key player in the upgrade of our switching infrastructure a few years back from the old, really old Bay networks and Nortel switches to the Hewlett-Packard state-of-the-art systems that we have today. So a lot of the connectivity and speed that we experience and reliability we have on our network today, a lot of that is due in part to the efforts that Jerry has put forward. And the thing I really appreciate about him the most is when we have, whatever the issue may be, no matter how simple or how dire an emergency might be or whatever it happens to be, he's got a really calm demeanor, and it's really actually kind of relaxing to talk to him because he's calm, he's always dedicated, he's very thorough, he's very reliable, and I always know that I can count on Jerry, and that's a really good thing to have in the team. So I'm very happy and very proud to be up here to recognize him for his 25-plus years of service. So thank you, Jerry.
So once again, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, we wish to thank Susan, Judith, Regina, and Jerry for their outstanding service to the college. And I also want to recognize those who couldn't be with us this evening. Jesus Aguilera, 30 years as a facilities assistant. Allison Chapin, 10 years lab teaching assistant. Loretta Chapin, 15 years program system support specialist. Candace Eckert, 10 years office assistant senior. Martha Lizalde, 20 years student program advisor, and Susan Williams, 20 years as instruction development specialist. So we'll now move to, we're going to take one item out of order. We're going to move to item 12.1, which is the City of Santa Barbara Public Works presentation concerning the Cliff Drive planning efforts.
Good afternoon, Board.
Welcome.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here today. My name's Derek Bailey, and I'm with the city's Public Works Department. I'm in the traffic engineering group, and the purpose of my visit today is just to share with you some things we've been working on Cliff Drive, some planning efforts. We have been working with City College staff just on some preliminary issues on Cliff Drive. So we're here to just share that with you today and kind of where the city's interests and SBC's interests overlap with one another. Just some history of Cliff Drive, just for everyone's information. Before 2013, Cliff Drive was a state route, Highway 225, controlled by Caltrans. In 2011, due to some feedback from the community really wasn't happy with the way Cliff Drive was functioning. The community really felt it was more of an urban highway and really incompatible with the neighborhood. So Caltrans, when they resurfaced the road in 2011, they implemented the road diet between City College and Meigs Road. In 2013, due to some neighborhood feedback and desires, Caltrans relinquished the highway to city control against city staff's recommendation. City staff actually recommended to the city council not to move forward with the relinquishment just due to the maintenance costs. Cliff Drive is a long street, it's a wide street, a lot of surface area, so when we look at the amount of money that Cliff Drive is going to cost to maintain in the long term, it's really not something that we recommended that the city take on. But the city council felt it was really important to take control of Cliff Drive from Caltrans so that moving forward in the future, the city would have control over operational issues. In 2016, the city's bicycle master plan was completed, and what we heard from the community through that process was a desire for high-quality cycling facilities along Cliff Drive. Also in 2016, the roundabout at the intersection of Cliff Drive and Las Positas was completed, which has been really successful. And next year, we're going to be constructing a separated bike path along Las Positas and Modoc roads. So we're really looking forward to that. Normally, when we begin a planning effort, what we do is we go to the community and we have something called listening workshops. And the purpose of that is just to not so much tell the community what we're going to be doing, but really listen as to what they want. Get their feedback on how streets are operating, what's working, what's not, and what they would like to see. In this case, we've been hearing what the community wants for quite a few years, and that was actually the driving factor in the relinquishment from Caltrans. So we're jumping ahead a step in this project. Some of the things we've heard from the community, they like the road diet. There was some skepticism before the road diet was implemented that it would work or not, but now that it has been implemented, people really like it.
Can I just interrupt for a moment to, because road diet is not a description that I hear regularly.
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
so
Thank you.
just to clarify, I think you mean that it went from a wider road to a narrower road, but
Yes, I apologize, traffic engineering lingo. Before the road was resurfaced in 2011, Cliff Drive between City College and Meigs had 2 lanes in each direction. After the resurfacing, when they restriped it, it turned to 3 lanes. So 1 lane in each direction plus a center turn lane, plus bike lanes. So that's what we refer to as a road diet. The community has been quite adamant about the need for crosswalks, frequent and safe crosswalks along Cliff Drive from end to end. Some members of the community would like the road diet extended west of Meigs. I mentioned the need for better and safer cycling facilities. A lot of people say traffic is still moving too fast on Cliff Drive. SBCC access is challenging at both the City College campus, East and West Campus driveways. And the Cliff Drive in general just still feels like a highway, even with the road diet. So we're, as we enter the planning effort, we're being mindful of everything that we've heard. Plus, we have a new policy at the city that the City Council adopted last year called Vision Zero. Basically, it's our vision that people should not be getting killed or put in the hospital as a result of collisions that happen on city streets. And the way we're approaching this to get to zero, or get as close to zero as possible, is we're using data to drive where we make improvements in the city. And we're selecting corridors that have a history of a high frequency of severe and fatal collisions. And one of the Vision Zero corridors in the city is Cliff Drive. So just along Cliff Drive, where the data is telling us the collisions are happening most frequently are near the shopping center, near Meigs, and as well near SBCC. So as we're developing a plan for this corridor, incorporating safety features into the project, especially with these 2 locations in mind, is going to be important. So what we're working on right now, and what we've been in contact with City College staff, we're creating a corridor plan that addresses safety issues, better mobility for bicyclists and pedestrians, and improve safety near City College. And what we're trying to do is position ourselves to apply for a grant next year through the Active Transportation Program. I'm going to spend just a few minutes talking about the active transportation program because this represents our best opportunity for funding. The reason nothing has happened since 2013 when the road was relinquished from Caltrans is just a lack of funding. The city has challenges keeping up with basic maintenance, let alone with expensive enhancements. So the active transportation program is a state program, state of California program. And the reason the state made this program is to increase the proportion of cycling and walking trips in the state, or to increase safety for non-motorized users. Applications for the program are every 2 years, even numbered years. It's a very competitive program. In 2018, the last time they had a call for projects, all the cities and counties in the state applied for over $2 billion worth of projects, and the state only had about $400 million to hand out. The good thing for Santa Barbara is we're competing against other small cities right now, so there is a piece of that pot that's carved out for small cities, and we've done very well competing for that pot of money. But 2020 is likely the last year that we can compete in that pot. 2020 is a census year, and it's likely that our region is going to go over 200,000 people. And once we do, we're going to be competing against the likes of Los Angeles, San Diego, and the San Francisco area. So that's why there's a sense of urgency to put forth a really good application next year. The active transportation program is not for vehicular improvements. The state won't pay for improvements for vehicles. So an example of that they've given us is, say you're doing a lighting corridor along a street. Well, if your reasoning for putting the lighting in is to light the crosswalks and the sidewalks, they'll say, okay, that's reasonable, that benefits pedestrians and cyclists. But if you're lighting the entire roadway, there's a benefit for vehicles as well. So we expect you as the local agency to pay that proportion that it benefits vehicles. So just keep that in mind because I'll have to come back to that later on. And as well, the state's looking for bang for their buck as far as improving pedestrian safety, cycling safety. So they don't want to spend a lot of money on aesthetic enhancements. In Santa Barbara, we tend to like to make things look nice. So any aesthetic embellishments is something that's going to have to be locally funded. So a successful active transportation program grant is going to result in more cycling and walking trips and a safer cycling and walking environment. So that's why we're working on a planning effort right now that includes a separated bike path and as well as frequent pedestrian crossing locations. A successful application will benefit students and will connect important community destinations. Has to be well supported by the community. In our grant application, we have to show that we did a lot of public outreach and that the community is really behind this application. It has to close a gap in the network, and I'll come back to that on the next slide. And as well, it should benefit disadvantaged communities. So communities like students or lower income neighborhoods that have typically have less access to cars and more reliant on walking, biking, and transit. So the gap closure, and this is why we think in 2020 we have a really competitive application. As I mentioned, Las Positas in blue and Modoc in blue, that's the bike path that we're going to begin construction on next summer. That's a bike path that's being funded through the same active transportation program. The county, just west of the city limit line, they're working on an extension of the bike path. They have that project funded also through the active transportation program. And that will close a gap to the Auburn Trail, which goes all the way out to UCSB. So once these facilities are built in the next few years, there's going to be a continuous bike path from UCSB all the way to the new roundabout. And existing right now, the city already has some bike paths along the waterfront. So when you look at Cliff Drive, it's a gap in the regional cycling network. So the case that we're going to make to the state is we have really good cycling facilities kind of bookending Cliff Drive. We really need to finish Cliff Drive in order to have a regional benefit. So the planning limits that we're looking at, likely going west to Hendry's Beach and east to about Castillo. City staff are doing most of the planning effort. We don't have a dedicated budget for doing planning efforts like this. That's why we're doing most of the work in-house. But the City Council did approve funding for a special traffic engineering consultant to look at challenging intersections along the corridor, one of which being the West Campus driveway of City College. One of the things that we want to go to the community with is alternatives. So do you like this or do you like that? And the reason for hiring the traffic engineering consultant is they specialize in roundabouts. So we wanted to go to the community and say, here's what a traffic signal would look like at these intersections. Here's what a roundabout would look like at these intersections. We would describe the pros and cons and get feedback from the community. So we asked the traffic engineering consultant to look at the West Campus driveway. And I apologize that this is faint. What they do is they take tissue paper over aerials and they get out their old compasses and protractors and scales, and they develop concepts. We challenged them to keep the footprint of a roundabout very compact so it would fit, and because the bigger they are, the more expensive they are, and the more likely they're to encroach on private property and sensitive areas. One of the important things with the roundabout is this, what we call a reverse curve entering the roundabout, and that brings traffic speeds down to about 15 or 20 miles an hour. That's a really optimum speed for safety and traffic flow entering the roundabout. But even challenging them to keep the footprint of this roundabout as small as possible, and this is about 20 or 30 feet in diameter smaller than the Cliff and Las Positas intersection, you can see it's still getting into a sensitive area in the Arroyo Honda, and this doesn't even include the circulating sidewalks around here. So because of that, we're really not focusing on roundabouts anymore. We've determined that it's just not constructible. So for this intersection, we think that a traffic signal is the best way to improve traffic flow and safety. Even more challenging is the intersection of Cliff Drive and Loma Alta and the tightly spaced East Campus driveway. There's only a few hundred feet between these intersections, and as well, the East Campus driveway being located on the inside of a curve makes operations challenging. Again, I apologize that this is faint, but this is just some AutoCAD work, some computer aided drafting. Basically what they did is they just plopped a circle on there just so we can get a sense of scale, how big that roundabout would be. The size of a roundabout at a more major intersection like Loma Alta compared to the West Campus driveway, it's really driven by the size of the vehicles that are going to be using it. So being that Cliff Drive is a major road, it's a delivery route to some of the shops at the shopping center, we can expect semi-trucks to be using this intersection, so the circle does have to be a little bit larger. As well, the angle at which the roads intersect drives the size of the circle. So because there is a skew, that does create the need for a little bit larger circle. You can see that the edge of this circle is getting into some areas where there's getting to be some elevation changes, and that drives the cost up for any potential roundabout. We did challenge them again to keep it as compact as possible, but an additional challenge at this intersection is that tightly spaced driveway at the East Campus, just a few hundred feet east. And the concept that they came up with is this. It would be very challenging to build, and it would require a realignment of the East Campus driveway so that it almost forms a singular intersection. From a traffic flow perspective, this would actually work really well. It looks a little bit complicated, but it would work really well. But the real challenge here is the size. And again, we're getting into some sloped areas. We're getting close to McKinley School property. There's a berm along this side, but this area right in here, the elevation drops off really quickly. And again, this doesn't even show the circulating sidewalks and the bike path that we'd be going through here. One of the challenges we have with crosswalks around roundabouts or any intersection is ADA. It needs to be flat. Of course, Loma Alta is starting to go downhill in this area, so just think of wheelchairs. We need them to be flat so the wheelchairs don't tip over. So just looking at this, we can tell right away this would be an incredibly expensive project. The permitting would be very complicated. You know, is it the best land use? And this doesn't even include bus stops for MTD. So this really isn't feasible. So we've put this aside, and we're focusing on traffic signal alternatives. So just how we're envisioning the bike path to interact with SBCC's frontage. The black line kind of indicates where a bike path will be along the City College side of Cliff Drive. We envision a new traffic signal at the West Campus driveway, a new traffic signal at the East Campus driveway. Specifically at Loma Alta and the East Campus driveway, these traffic signals are going to be very tightly spaced, much tighter than we prefer. We do prefer wider spacing between our traffic signals. It makes the operation much easier. So it will require some more complex operations, but it is doable. As far as the bike path goes, we do envision having to carve out some of the area in this berm along the south side of Cliff Drive, which is city-owned right-of-way. Once we get east of Loma Alta, we think the best thing to do is to likely swing behind the existing bus stop. In this area right here, that would mean getting onto campus property. So there would have to be cooperation between the city and the college in order for the city to do that type of work. Just what a two-way bike path looks like. This is an example from Orange County. They've built along their waterfront area. So there'd be a raised median separating traffic from cyclists, so it would provide a sense of safety. What we heard from a lot of the neighborhood when we were developing some of these ideas is parents would like to take their kids biking, and they don't feel safe right now biking on Cliff Drive with just a white painted line separating 45-mile-an-hour traffic from the bike lane. So something like this is something that parents would feel more comfortable taking their kids on. And just a lot of the community in general would likely feel a lot more comfortable using a bike path like this. This is a sketch we developed this is San Rafael, so this is maybe about half a mile west of campus. This shows the bike path that would run along the south side of the road. A two-way bike path running along the street like this does create some unique safety challenges at some of the intersections that we will have to address. Again, there would be a raised barrier, a median separating the bike path from moving traffic. It would have openings for private driveways as well as intersections. There would have to be carve-outs for the bus stop. And as far as just where would crosswalks be located along Cliff Drive, we think that locating crosswalks next to bus stops is really important. If you think about bus riders, you know, they leave in the morning, they come back in the afternoon. During one of those trips, they're going to have to cross the street, and we want that to make that as comfortable for them as possible. So we foresee probably about 7 or 8 crosswalks being built along Cliff Drive along the entire stretch, and certainly some would be closer to SBCC. There are some busy apartments along the north side of the road, and there's a lot of student crossings that we'd like to make safer. So just in terms of process and project delivery, the city's going to be taking the lead on the application, and we are very confident that we're going to get this money, even though it is very competitive. It's likely going to be a very expensive project. We think it's probably going to be over $10 million right now, but just as we're doing this planning effort and getting feedback from the community and figuring out what features the community wants as part of the project, that's really going to drive the final cost. We are going to request the majority of the project funding through the Active Transportation Program. The only exception to that is the project benefits to vehicles. They must be locally funded. So just back of napkin calculations right now, we think that vehicular benefit's probably somewhere around $500,000, and the vehicular benefit is mostly going to be traffic coming to and from SBCC. So if you think of the traffic moving on and off campus that would benefit from having traffic signals there, that's likely where the local contribution's going to come in. So the city will be looking to partner with SBCC on that. Construction isn't going to be till about 2025, 26. So that's when funding would be required. But we would need to have an agreement up front of what that would look like. Process-wise, we're in the summer right now, so we're doing traffic analysis, data collection. We're wrapping up the intersection studies as far as roundabout feasibility. During the fall and winter, we're going to be presenting the concepts to the community. And by the spring, we need to have a community-preferred alternative. We need to have this dialed in by the spring. By the spring, we need to start putting the active transportation applications together. They're typically due in early summer, so we're expecting to have to submit those in summer of 2020. By winter of 2020, we'll know the results. And it is a long delivery for a complex project. It's likely going to be 3 or 4 years of design with construction around 2025-26. So that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, and we would appreciate any feedback that you have. We want to make sure we're on the right track here.
Thank you very much. Before we get to questions, I'd just like to acknowledge that I think everyone appreciates the activity and work in this area. As I'm sure you know, we had a student fatality at the intersection to the east entrance of the college earlier this year, and it's clearly a problematic intersection. And so we're pleased to see the work. We can obviously save the money question until a later time, but we very much appreciate your presentation, and we'll see if there are any questions from anybody. Trustee Haslam?
I appreciate your presentation and the hard work that your department is doing. The part that concerns me is I guess the absence of some further effort at a roundabout at the obvious structural point. Do you feel absolutely certain that this is not going to be feasible? That a traffic signal is going to be preferred? And I'm thinking of the Loma Alta intersection.
Right. Anything can be built with enough money. And the challenge we have with this project is, you know, we as a city don't have funding available for expensive projects. You know, we're in a period of time right now where we have an incredibly long list of maintenance backlogs. So we're not able to contribute to an expensive project like that. So what we're trying to do right now is fit a project into the scope of the grant. And we know that the grant, in order to have a competitive application, they need to be cost effective. So if there's a roundabout that's going to cost $6 or $8 million versus a traffic signal that's going to cost a few $100,000, the people that are in Sacramento that are reviewing these grant applications, they're going to look at it and go, you know, we can give that money to, you know, some city down in the San Diego region and get the same benefit. And Santa Barbara's up here asking for $6 or $8 million for a roundabout that they could put in a traffic signal that would be almost as effective. So we were disappointed to find out that the roundabout would be as challenging to build as it would be. We would love to find a way to move forward with that, but just in the context of cost, we don't see how to get there now.
Okay.
Trustee Parker? Yeah.
Thank you. And I really appreciate the way your department has been going around the city, various neighborhoods where Vision Zero projects are being considered and including the community. And I did watch you speak via live streaming at the Omni meeting, so that was great. My question is about the East Campus entrance. And while you're, first of all, I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you feel that a traffic signal, those two traffic signals will be quite close together, how that would work. And then I'm wondering, I mean, you're thinking about the road side of it. Should we, as a college, be thinking about our entrance? I mean, is there work that we should be considering to make that entrance work better as it interfaces with the road? And so those are my questions for you.
Okay. Thanks, great questions. The best way to think about those traffic signals is if you can think about freeway interchange. So if you think about the interchange of Carrillo, for example, it has two really tightly spaced traffic signals on either side of the freeway. The main difference is the predominant traffic movements are going to be along Cliff Drive. At the freeway interchange, there's a lot of people getting off the freeway. But just in terms of that really tight spacing, it requires very special coordination of the traffic signals. We don't want one, as you're driving down Cliff Drive, one light red and one light green, because there's a driver expectancy when you have traffic signals that are that close that you'll get through both of them. So it's doable, and it's demonstrated that it can be done at freeway interchanges, but it just requires more special coordination than we typically have to deal with, but it is doable. Your second question, yes, I am going to just back up to the aerial diagram. It's something we have talked to your staff about, and one of the concerns that your staff have expressed to us is the movement of pedestrians, for example. The students, a lot of students, get off the bus, they use this crosswalk, and then they come down there. We've been talking about, is there a way that we can encourage students to potentially cross at this driveway and have the predominant flow of pedestrians more back into the heart of campus, for example. Something like that would likely require some modifications to the driveway. We don't need to decide now to include in this application, but it's something that as we're getting closer to 2025-26, we should be coordinating. And it's something that we do have a little bit more time to study and how to make it work well. There is the small bike path that winds its way around the campus here. Ideally, that would connect directly into the bike path on Cliff Drive. So there'd be a safe connection that cyclists wouldn't have to mix with traffic. So just little things like that, yes. We do think that some changes are probably warranted, but we don't need to figure those out today.
Trustee Aboud.
So two of my questions were thankfully already asked. So one question is, I don't think I heard, what would be the cost of this streetlight and bike path project?
We don't know
We don't know.
total end-to-end cost yet. We're still working with the community and interested community members as to what features they want in the project, but we're thinking it's going to be above 10 million.
Above 10 million?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
going to be an expensive project. There's no question. As far as specific features, traffic signals generally cost $300,000 to $400,000.
Okay. So constructing the median is where the bulk of the money is going to go to?
It's not just the median. Once we get into certain areas, did I do that? Sorry. The bike path is going to be elevated up to sidewalk level, so there won't just be medians. It is going to be a mix. It just depends on where along the corridor the improvements are made, but it is going to be a complex project.
Okay.
So we do expect it to be expensive.
And Measure C funds aren't available for use in this?
Measure C funds are already spoken for several times over.
They're already done,
Yeah,
okay.
so we've got a really long list of street maintenance efforts that really need to be done. We're not even keeping up with that with Measure C. So we really have a responsibility to maintain what we have first. That's why we go after a lot of grant funding to make community improvements. Just about all of our crosswalk projects that we've done in the city have been through grants. If we can bring that outside funding from higher levels of government into Santa Barbara, it keeps our local street money available for maintenance.
Just was going to finish up one last thing, which is I just really want to echo again. I think the roundabouts. You said it's 6 million for just the Loma Alta one, and then 10 million would be for this entire project. Just to me personally, streetlights are more car-centric in general, and we're moving towards a carless future. And I think roundabouts can be more easily adapted in the future into non-car use. So if there was other funding that we could help advocate to get that would make that possible, I know this is not the only state grant that's available for this kind of work. I think we'd be happy to support that, because the roundabout has been a big conversation topic at this board for a while now. So I know it's more complicated than I'm making it seem
Yeah.
right now, but
No,
I would feel bad if our college was now like 3 stoplights where the entrances into the college. It feels clunky in a way, and it feels just very car-centric when we're moving towards a less car-centric future.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And just from a safety perspective, we like roundabouts because if you think about the fatality that happened last December, it was a speed-related fatality. When there's a green light, somebody can drive through an intersection
Right.
at 45, 50 miles an hour. With the roundabout, it slows traffic down. So the traffic signals really don't address the speed issue. We don't have to preclude a roundabout, it's just we're not going to include it in the application. If something happens that between now and 2025, between our 2 jurisdictions, we can come up with the funding, we can make that change within the project.
Okay.
It's just that we don't feel that we'll have a competitive application if we're asking for that much money.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. You can apply for the money, get it, and then maybe if circumstances change, switch to a similar project like a roundabout if other funding was available.
Correct.
Good to know. Thank you.
So, just for the record, I share the comments of Trustees Haslund and Aboud. I think the roundabout obviously would be ideal. Understand the financial obstacles. Let me ask this: when you say $10 million, you're talking about the entire project from Los Positos all the way to Castillo. Is that when you say 10 million?
Yes, and that's very back of napkin. So then if there were a roundabout incorporated into the project, it would be a $16 million project. And these are very rough numbers, but just order of magnitude.
And the 6 million extra would be just for the roundabout on the east, or for both east and west entrances?
East.
East, okay.
Yeah, there's the potential to be a lot of retaining walls with that configuration, and retaining walls is when project construction costs go way up.
Trustee Croninger?
Thank you as well for working on this project, which is really important to us and has been a subject of discussion for some time. I think you answered this question, but does the separate bike path go all the way to Carrillo?
Castillo?
I mean Castillo.
Yes. We are looking at the feasibility of taking it all the way to Castillo. Yes.
Okay. Because
And-
I've certainly seen students coming up the hill on their bike, crossing over halfway up 4 lanes, and it just looks extremely dangerous.
And we do have a separately funded planning effort. We got a small grant over the winter to study the Castillo undercrossing into downtown, just to see if there's any improvements that can be made on the approaches. We know we're very locked in with the configuration of the underpass itself. That's a Caltrans facility. Obviously, we can't make that any wider underneath without great expense. But on the approaches, as it's coming up out from under the freeway, there may be some opportunities to make that safer. So we're going to be looking at that. We know a lot of your students live downtown and bike to college.
That would be very helpful, because I think they do approach the campus from that direction. Also, what safety provisions do you incorporate to discourage bikes from not stopping where they should with a traffic light situation, so you get into a conflict with the cars?
Generally, at traffic signals and bike paths, we haven't had as poor compliance as when cyclists are actually on the street. A good example of a traffic signal with a bike path is at Milpa Street in Cabrillo, where the bike path crosses Cabrillo. We found that cyclists are generally very compliant there, but it has a lot to do with how much cross traffic there is. So there isn't anything physical that we can really put in to stop cyclists from running a light, but just the sheer amount of traffic that they'd have to encounter getting across the road will likely discourage them.
Trustee Garrett?
Yes, thank you. Well, I echo your concern for reducing traffic speeding, so thank you for that. My first question was, will Santa Barbara Unified, are you making this presentation to them for the 500,000, seeing as McKinley's across the street as well, and they would also, they have contributions to the traffic?
We're going to be talking to their facilities staff at first. We don't see McKinley as having the same vehicular benefit as the City College, just because City College is a much more significant traffic generator than McKinley, and most of the improvements are going to be made on the south side of Cliff Drive.
And then I agree, Santa Barbara, yes, we like things pretty and aesthetically pleasing to the entrance of our campus. I'm in favor of a roundabout. You mentioned Sacramento. Is there anything that can be presented in the way of safety, given the proximity to the children across the street at McKinley, and then our own Orphala Center, and then the families that continuously walk all the way up Cliff Drive to get to McKinley, and people are flying down 40 miles an hour? And so I just think that there has to be a case to be made, because I used to work at McKinley, so I teach young children, and you're talking, the distance between a child and their parent and that car coming down the hill, or up the hill actually, is quite concerning. But that's not anything is that something we can do on our end to work with our legislature, or how can we support that? Because I think that a roundabout is the way to go. I know I saw plans too of a beautiful redesign going all the way down to the beach, which are all dreams that would have been wonderful if they would have come true. But for sure, the roundabout, I think, is going to decrease the speed coming down and up. So I don't know, is that anything that we can help on that end, or is that just, I hear that you're gonna apply and then we'll find out what happens, but.
Yeah, in terms of just pedestrian safety with people coming up Cliff Drive from the Lower West neighborhood, we're already going to make that case in our application.
Yeah.
We're going to describe the way Cliff Drive operates and why this is a really important transformational project to the community. But at the end of the day, we're left trying to describe why there's such an expensive intersection across such a long corridor. In terms of how do we move forward and try to get funding for something like that, we should continue discussions. Maybe, our state representatives can help us out somehow. We don't see a path forward right now, but we shouldn't abandon the idea. You never know when money's going to fall from the sky in terms of, there might be a federal injection of funds into transportation facilities sometime in the next few years, and we should have a project ready to accept something like that. But just in terms of what we're working on right now and what we're going to apply for, we don't see that as being a solid application.
Yeah, well, awesome. Well, thank you for everything. I love the idea of connecting the bike path, safety. Just so thank the city on our behalf. You guys have done a lot of great work. The access now from the east side all the way through here is amazing. And for my kids, we get to Montecito really quickly. We get to the beach. And so just all the improvements that have been done on this area are wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Nielsen?
Hey, thank my colleagues for the really good questions they asked, because waste time. Is it off? I don't want to have to repeat anything. I only had one thing to add. I was just wondering, you had this big oval for a roundabout there to kind of encompass the intersection and the entrance to our campus. If we redid the intersection to our campus, could we just do a larger, flatter circle, more of a circle encompassing Loma Alta and Cliff Drive? And Yeah, that's like a figure-8 racetrack. I think to me, it just says it's a nightmare, but you guys are the experts. But what if we just did a larger circle and used up more of the corner of our campus? Yeah, maybe not quite that big, but bigger. So if you used up that corner of our campus that sticks out there, I know there's a grading problem, but overall, it'd be, except for that one part of it, it'd be pretty flat. And you could get, if you got the diameter bigger, you could incorporate more features, and it seems like that is almost, it just seems really a complicated solution. But you guys are the experts. I just thought I'd throw my 2 cents in there, and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. No, but to be sure, it is a complicated configuration, and it is a complicated intersection. One of the challenges with a roundabout, and what you're suggesting would require a larger circle, is Loma Alta would intersect the circle, Cliff Drive would intersect the circle, and your campus driveway would have to slip in between them. And part of the challenge with that is getting vehicles able to turn right into the circle from the campus driveway onto Cliff Drive, and as well Loma Alta coming up and being able to turn right. It gets quite complicated. And well, what you're suggesting, we didn't look at that specifically, but it would get really expensive filling in this area right here. Again, we're getting into retaining walls and features that would be quite expensive. But you know, we're happy to continue this conversation with the college over the next few years about something other than a traffic signal right here.
No, I just thought maybe our driveway could be reconfigured to enter the circle slightly different point.
Yeah, it's those right turning movements and accommodating big vehicles like a semi that has that big sweep behind
The
it.
big thing is to get them onto the circle instead of being able to turn it. Maybe they have to go around the circle to turn right or something. But there's got to be a way that's not so complicated, I would think.
Yeah, no, we're happy to continue looking at this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Trustee Beshi?
No question.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your presentation and answering our questions. I think it's really, really important and helpful that we start this conversation the way we have tonight, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it again in the future. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
So we'll move to item 3.1, approval of the
I move approval of the minutes.
Is there a second?
August 8th.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes for August 8, 2019. Is there any comment or questions? Trustee Croninger.
I think we need to amend the beginning of the minutes. I'm not pulling it up here. My computer went too fast. But anyway, the part about the agenda item that Mr. Koss had requested, we have cited the board policy that is the board policy relating to how you get something on the agenda. We were not talking about a violation of that policy. I think Mr. Koss had said possible violations of BP 2720, 2715, 2200, and the Brown Act. And so that was the substance of that part. So we should just amend the minutes to reflect that.
Okay. Anybody have any comments about Trustee Croninger's request?
No objection.
With no objection, I would call for a vote on the minutes with the correction identified by Trustee Croninger. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. We'll now move to public comment, although I note we don't have any speaker slips for public comment tonight, other than one pertaining to item 10.1. And so we'll move on, but before we do that, I'll just note that when we get to item 10.1, it will actually be a hearing on the budget, so Mr. Koss will be able to provide his comments at that time. So we move on to reports. Our first report would be from Patricia Stark, President of the Academic Senate. Welcome.
Hi. Hello, everyone. You have a long meeting and a lot of agenda items, and I always appreciate these few minutes where I can talk to you about faculty updates. And I especially do so this time because the Senate's really just getting started with our business, and we don't have a whole lot to present in terms of actual achievable outcomes at this point. So I wanted to take just a few minutes to focus on the in-service day that we had before the semester started. And today, I wanted to show you a few of the workshops. The ones that I'm featuring up here are either entirely faculty-led or led with faculty and the assist of staff or with administration. But I just want to bring them up to you to show you kind of the breadth and the depth of the kind of things that we're working on at the college. A year ago, Ann Redding, who is the chair of our School of Justice Studies, actually did her faculty lecture on the role of crime in popular culture, literature, et cetera. It was a very scary and powerful lecture, and she used that, expanded that into using crime as a teaching tool. It's really kind of astounding how crime has perpetrated our popular culture in film, literature, et cetera. Scott Fickerson, who is our track coach, talked about a topic that's popular to all of us, something we should probably all be focusing on. Nick Arnold is an engineering professor who has served on statewide and nationwide task force about gender equity in STEM education. And he joined with Linda Dozer, who's our new Title IX investigator, to talk about preventing sexual harassment. This is something I'm just fascinated with, and there's a huge movement at the State Academic Senate level in creating 100% online resources for courses so that students would not have to buy a textbook. And we actually are part of a consortium to begin exploring how we can do that. We are part of it with San Luis, with Cuesta. In doing this, but there's actually a program now where entire math programs, and that includes not just the text, but all the supplemental materials, all the quizzes, everything is 100% online, fully vetted. And we're bringing this to City College, and Cameron Polson, who is part of our library staff and others, gave a presentation on where we are with that and how we can move forward. This one was very interesting. I didn't go, but I have heard about it. John Beck is an accounting professor, newly tenured, has a wonderful sense of fun in his classes, and how to use games as learning activities in the field of accounting. I think that we all would consider accounting to maybe be a little dry, and so this is a way to infuse some fun. Of this, of course, you've heard a lot about. 705, really the elimination or the near elimination of pre-college level courses in math and English, and how and what the impact is going to be on all of our disciplines college-wide. And this is our 705 transformation team who have been working on this for a full year. Elizabeth Emhoff, who's our faculty professional development coordinator, talked about using choice boards in terms of teaching developing culturally competent pedagogy. Choice boards are these graphic elements. They're where, depending on what a student's learning style is, they can pick different extension activities to enhance their learning that would work with the way that they learn best. Proven to be very, very effective with our underrepresented students. Of course, something we're always interested in, which is academic counseling, and this is members of our counseling staff. The in-service is coordinated by our Professional Development Advisory Committee, which is a cross-constituency on campus. We just today met and we looked at the feedback from our in-service, and I don't know if you saw it, Dr. Benjamin, it was very positive, and it was not so last year. So we had a much improved day. So Dean Carolla Smith, with huge assist from Christina Ortero, who put all of this together. Now, I want to focus on something that I found profoundly moving, and I don't know, some of you were there, but not all of you, and this of course will be addressed to Dr. Benjamin. She brought the idea of a common table to campus, and it was really something to see. You would have almost needed a shot from a helicopter to get the full impact of this common table. But her idea, was that with all the tension, the divisiveness that we've experienced at the college, that we should every one of us, be able to sit at a common table and break bread together. And these are some of the images. This is before we all sat. We had music from students. The whole event had a musical background. You can't really get a scale of these. And by the way, these photos were provided by our Office of Communication, but you can get a little bit of a sense of what it looked like. We picked up our food in the cafeteria and brought it outside, and we ate it. We had students helping us with music, with handing out ice cream bars. Just our student ambassadors were there in force. And here is my best, a nice establishing shot to show this. Dr. Benjamin's message at the college has been consistent since she has been here, that in order for us to succeed in doing what is our job, which is serving our students, that we need to put our tensions, our disagreements aside and find the capacity for forgiveness and understanding and come together in a common effort. I've been very inspired by that, and I thought that this was a wonderful demonstration of how we could do that in a very practical way. So anyway, that's my presentation for today. I just thought you might enjoy seeing some of what we used when we came together for those 2 days in mid-August. Any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Our next report is from Associated Students President Alexandra Montes de Oca. Welcome.
All right. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
Oh, I always do that. So things to report on the Associated Student Government. In our last board meeting on Friday, September 6th, we have successfully approved our budget for the year. So that is done. As far as filling our board seats, applications have been out, and the deadline was today at 4 p.m., so we can anticipate reviewing those applications. The flow of that will proceed as we'll have a regular board meeting Friday. I've made an appointment with our only other board member, Kenny, to review the applications. We will conduct interviews and then make decisions within the following week or two. And then following that, I am in the process of trying to outreach to students for sitting on committees. A lot of students have reached out to me saying that they are interested in being involved in ASG but are still unsure about the position. So I'm going to approach that with saying you can sit on a committee, which is where we need student voices. At our last board meeting as well, we appointed Josh Villanueva as our student advisor. That role is a non-voting role. He is simply there as an advisor of some sort to me and to the board as well to ask questions. It was voted in full vote, and I approve of that just because I am coming into this position, not being on ASG in the past and not really knowing how the flow of it goes. So having somebody who can aid me in that, who has done all of this in the past year, has been it's really beneficial and it's really resourceful, and I am happy that he has dedicated his time to be able to fill this role. I recently received word that the title student advisor seems a little questionable, as that there is a title student program advisor already in effect. So that's going to be put on our next agenda to discuss for the next following meeting that I will get on that. And that is all that I have. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Any questions?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next, we'll have a report on classified employees from Liz Auchincloss. Welcome, Liz.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the board. Right now, I would say classified staff, we're trying to get our contract ratified. We have a vote next week. So if that's successful, then it will come to you in October. And the other thing that we're trying to work on is the effects and impacts of the reductions. The hiring freeze, the reduction in student workers, the reduction in hourly workers. So we've also asked to negotiate those impacts and effects because they're already beginning to feel, the staff are already beginning to feel the effects in some of these areas. So we'll be...
Liz, could you speak up just a little bit? I'm
okay.
having trouble.
Am I close enough?
Yeah.
So we're working on our contract to get it ratified, hopefully next week on our vote. And then it will come to you if we successfully ratify it. And the other thing is, we are trying to work with the impacts and effects of the reductions, the hiring freeze and the reductions in hourly workers and in student workers. That's this beginning of the school year, so staff are beginning to feel that. And so we've asked to negotiate those impacts with the district because there's a lot of them because there's a lot of different areas that have been impacted by the reduction in the staff. So we'll be working on that. You may hear more about that as time goes on. And then the consultation group meets next Monday. We're still working on trying to find someone a third person to serve on the accreditation steering committee. We've gotten 2 people, we're looking for 1 more. And then there's other committees that we're trying to find members for. Any questions?
Questions? Thanks for your report. And next, Dr. Benjamin.
Thank you. Good evening. I just have a couple of things to report. A group of us attended the Guided Pathways Institute in Sacramento last weekend from Thursday to Saturday, and Trustee Gallardo was with us, and we learned a lot about, it was an institute, and it was the 6th in the series. And we are in a kind of special category, I call it one of 20, chosen in the state to implement guided pathways. And so we got to interact with our colleagues from the other 19 institutions to hear wonderful presentations about the goals and to help us in our planning. And this is our kickoff, as you know already, is fall of 2020, a year from now. And so there's just lots of work for us to do in order to be ready for that kickoff. It is to improve the success of students. And one of the things we're doing, we know that we need, lots of colleges have what they called a while ago, I don't know if they still call them one-stops, but to have services for students centralized into one building. And so in an effort to move toward that goal, we're making changes in our student services building. We are going to move human resources out of that building and use it for more of the student services, because right now they're really kind of scattered all over, not all over campus, but in different places on our campus, and that will allow us to get more of the services. And then we're going to put some funds into reorganizing and changing the footprint of it a bit so that it makes more sense for students as they interact and register for courses and meet counselors and perform all those kinds of services they need in order to be successful. So there are two portables. I'm directionally challenged, so I don't know which side of the humanities building they're on, but there are 2 buildings there, and those are being converted to space for human resources, and they should move in October. So we'll make sure you get a tour once that is completed, and we're excited about that, especially about having a space for students that makes more sense for them. I want to remind you that you have a special meeting on Tuesday, the 17th, in which you will receive a report on the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Survey. We hired a person from Maryland all the way across the country. People wanted objective folks to be involved in getting this information, so you are going to be the beneficiary of the results of that survey, which I think you will find very interesting. And the meeting starts at 5 o'clock. We will have one other item on that agenda, and that will be the student equity plan. We're a little behind. We got an extension from the State Chancellor's Office on that because we wanted to make sure we have the participation of as many people as we could in the development of the plan. So the plan is going through the process right now, and you will have the opportunity to read it, review it for the first time. You have to have 2 readings of that. So you'll read it, you'll get a review on the 17th, which is Tuesday, and then in your October meeting, a second reading where you'll vote on it. We needed to, and I've told you about this before, I think, we needed to review our mission statement that's required by our accrediting commission. So that's going through the paces right now, and so are our strategic directions that are in draft form, and they will come to you, we're not really sure right now, either in November or December. So that's something we're working on. And we are also in the process of refining our participatory governance document being led by Z. Reese in that effort, and it is in the CPC right now for review. We've been discussing it the last couple of meetings, and it'll take us a while. Everybody needs to see it, but we're in that process. That's another participatory accreditation requirement, that that document be reviewed, and we needed to do some updating. It contains all of our committees, so we're really doing work to make it current and assessing some things that we probably need to be taking a look at. And as you know, you will receive the feedback, not the feedback, but the report on the results of the survey on equity, diversity, and inclusion on the 17th, and then we'll have forums all day on the 18th and the 19th so that all of our employees will have an opportunity to receive that report as well. We will not only be having the presentations made on campus, but also having them made at SHOT and at Wake. So we're trying to cover everybody, different times of the day, so that part-time people, credit, non-credit, because all of those people participated and they're interested in the results. And then on October 1st and 2nd, we will have focus groups all day on both of those days. We're in the process of trying to figure that out now, but it'll be 16 hours, so there'll be all day, both days, 8 hours each day. People will have the opportunity to go. The survey gives us the data. The focus groups gives us the opportunity to hear the voices of people. So Z and I are working on this today. After the presentations on the 18th and the 19th, we're going to send out just a brief survey to get reactions from people on what they saw. It's really important to us to make sure that people know we heard them, that they're involved in this process, because they were pretty convinced that we wouldn't follow up. And so we really want to follow up, let people know what the data are, and then develop a plan. And so we're hoping we have the plan developed by the end of the semester. But there are just lots of steps involved, and we're trying to do all the right things and include as many people as we can. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Dr. Benjamin. I think we all look forward to next Tuesday to hear the results of the climate survey.
And I do want to add that our board president is, we wanted him to be present to give a greeting at each one of these sessions, but he's otherwise engaged, so we're going to videotape him so that he can deliver his message to each of these groups by video, because I think it's important for them to see who the board president is and to have that presence. So now that really concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? With that, without any, we'll move on to item 6.1, call for removal of items from the consent calendar. But let me first state that the consent calendar includes items 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, 8.1, 9.1, 9.2, and 9.3. And I'm advised, before I hear whether we have any to remove, I'm advised there's a correction for 9.2. which is a ratification of purchase orders, and there's one item being deleted, that is on page 1, innovative workshop in the amount of $29,000. That's being deleted from that list. Having said that, yes, Trustee Parker?
Just a point of clarification, is item 7.4 short-term and student personnel on the consent agenda?
Did I miss that one?
I'm not sure.
Yep, okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so it includes, the consent calendar includes 7.4.
I'm sorry, Robert. We were trying to figure out 7.4, and I missed what you were changing on the purchase.
It's 9.2, ratification of purchase orders. And on page, it's a listing, a several-page listing. On page 1, toward the bottom, there's an item titled Innovative Workshop in the amount of $29,000. Do you see that? That's being removed.
But there's another one for innovative that's still there.
That's correct. This is the only item I was...
There's one that's 2 from the bottom and then 2 more up.
What's the dollar amount on that one?
20,000.
The one they were removing was a 29,000.
Okay, so.
Okay.
President Miller, I'd like to remove item 9.2
Item 9.2?
from the consent agenda, yes.
Okay. So before we move to a discussion of item 9.2, I would ask if there's a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved to approve the consent agenda minus item 9.2.
Okay. Is there a second?
A second.
All those, is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. And now we will move to consideration of item 9.2.
Yes, thank you. So my first concern is there's a number of things that I think traditionally have come to the board as standing items, maybe services and contracts, and maybe we'll clean that up. I think when we moved to the consent agenda, the goal was that we would include in the consent items that were not controversial, that they were routine, and as to move the meeting along. My concern is on the use of some of the funding. On our SBCC website, on the grants for institutional research, the Title V IPATH grant, which was a $2.7 million grant, and it's awarded for Hispanic serving institutions to expand capacity, quality, and the educational achievement of Latinos and other low-income students. So the grant ends on September 30th, and so there's some money left over probably that they're clearing out. The use of that money for the Crossroads Anti-Racism Organization and training is something that I think needs to come out separately and not embedded into something like this. This is something that has been extremely controversial in the college, in the community. The recent articles in The Independent and Newshawk with the incidents that are going on at Santa Barbara Unified and what's happened to the students and the teachers that went through that training, given all of that, paying for things like this, even whether it's a grant or if it's from our general fund, is not a liability that I'm willing to put the college through. I understand this is already, service has already been rendered, these things come to us, this occurred sometime between August and August 30th. The Title V IPATH grant has very specific objectives in it. I think it would be helpful for the board to know how this aligned to some of the objectives. I know certainly when Dr. Friedlander wrote this grant, there was some faculty professional development embedded into it. There is no research to support that any of these activities support the achievement of Latino students. I went ahead and I researched through Excelencia in Education, which is the national organization that we all participated in over in Buellton, to research whether there was any programming to support or justify why we would use money for this. Similarly, when Pedro Noguera came to Santa Barbara, he spoke at City College. He also spoke to a room full of educators in Goleta at Santa Barbara Unified. He also cited that there's no research to support implicit bias or this type of research when you're looking at closing achievement gaps for Latinos. So I have requested in the past, and I think I'll request again, that I think it's important for us to just be fully transparent on how much money we're spending on trainees and on these initiatives to date, the overall cost, the cost the college has spent on travel, the cost the college is paying on salaries to attend these trainings, so we can get a complete dollar amount and just be very transparent, and that these things in the future come up as a standalone item, since this is a very controversial topic in our community right now. And my concern is the mental health and well-being of staff, faculty, specifically students, and really opening up the college to liability based on what's happening in the community currently.
Trustee Croninger.
I share Veronica's concern in general as well, that it seems like the purchase order category has expanded over the last couple of year, I'm not sure exactly. I know I brought it up earlier for the June timeframe because I was surprised at the amounts, and I didn't really have time at that point to look more closely at our past records. But when I did look back, what we were generally seeing is equipment, chairs and desks and desktop computers, and the kind of obvious stuff that you would expect in a purchase order. Lately, we've been seeing more things that I would expect to see as a contract, and I suspect there is an underlying contract as well, given the nature of the services. And the amounts have been going up. I mean, so in June 18, I think we had 300,000 in purchase orders for that time frame. For June of this year, we had 1.3 million. And I think that reflects that migration of more things into purchase orders. And I feel more comfortable when these items are brought out as separately as contracts. I often look at the agenda for College of the Canyons because I think they have a really good board agenda, and they have a consent agenda like we do, and they have many, many, many contracts on it. You just have the feeling that the contracts are all coming through specifically with the contract attached. And yes, I'm sure they go through as a consent item, but they are very transparent in presenting those items. So I would encourage us to move back to that direction.
I have to say that I brought this up a couple of meetings ago to the board, that you pull so many items. Were you sure you wanted a consent agenda like this? Because it doesn't make sense to have it if every time you have a meeting, you're just going to keep pulling stuff from it. They might as well be on non-consent. So we're following the policies the way you have them written in terms of the amounts. So whatever is your pleasure is what we'll do.
I say if it's controversial, it needs to be a standing item, so the public doesn't, the perception isn't there that we are bearing something.
No, it's your, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
we'll do whatever it is.
So I would recommend that something like Crossroads Anti-Racism Training Organization, which is extremely controversial, it be a standalone item. That's not something that we put into a purchase order, because it gives the perception that we are not being transparent with what we're using our money with.
Trustee Parker, do you have comment, question?
Has it come up before the board before that the Crossroads training is controversial?
From when I've been watching it, and you know, you were on the board at San Diego Unified when you approved the Just Communities contracts, and so the article that came out with the student, basically his mental health was affected so bad after attending one of these types of trainings that he felt like committing suicide. And so what I've been hearing from the community, and certainly I attended the board meeting on Tuesday to follow this, that members of the community have brought to me, and when I'm speaking to members of the community, I'm saying, no, this is not something that's on our agenda, we have not seen this. And so because this is showing up, I'm pulling it because I think that is our due diligence to make sure that we're ensuring the safety and well-being of our students.
I appreciate that point for the future. I do feel like there are major differences between K-12 and the community college, including the fact that this is a different provider and different training, and having experienced both, they're quite different. But also that the Crossroads training came out of our faculty. It was not something, I mean, we're such a collaborative organization that I would hesitate to put the board in a position where we are going to veto what has come to us from our partner collaborative groups. So that's my one concern about it. I do appreciate that the transparency piece, and maybe it would be, as I think I agree with Ms. Croninger, for items like this, that it would be easy to pull. I think it's okay if sometimes there's one item that we pull that it turns out is controversial and we didn't know it was going to be controversial. But I don't know. To me, it's a little bit questionable to put every time. I don't even know if this is going to come forward again. But I don't know that it needs to be on an action agenda. I think it's okay if it's the way Ms. Croninger put it. If Trustee Croninger, I think your suggestion was that it simply be on the consent agenda but called out so that if members of the public wanted to speak on it, it was a little bit easier to do so.
Well, then it needs to be on the non-consent agenda. If you want to discuss it, and if you're going to pull it, it doesn't need to be on consent. And if you want to cover it, you just got to make up your mind where you want it and what it is and how we make the determination.
I think,
Because if these things come to us and we're following a set of rules, I haven't heard anybody come here and make a complaint about Crossroads. So if it's a category of certain kinds of contracts you want, that would be an easier thing to do, I would think, rather than you're just saying every time something comes for this particular organization, Crossroads, it should not be on consent, it should be on non-consent. Is that what the desire is?
so a couple things. So Dr. Benjamin, you're not going to get someone coming here to speak against Crossroads. So I'm going to speak on behalf of the public and the people and the faculty. It's a very controversial topic. And the behavior, the evidence that we have for the behavior that we've experienced at this board when someone speaks anything around organizations like this, it's not very positive. So no one's going to come here. And especially if you're a white board member, you're probably not going to say something about Crossroads. My thing with this, Kate, it's just part of our fiduciary responsibility. If something is being paid for by a grant, then we verify, does that activity align with the grant guidelines and the objectives of that grant? So that's one thing that I want us to look into. Because when I looked through the grant, and again, I didn't PDF it to just do a search, but when I searched through it, and I remember talking to Jack about this grant and hearing about IPATH and Ed Policies Committee way back when, none of those activities were included in that grant. So I just think, just clarify if the grant aligns with the activity it's being used. And if so, then be done.
Jack Friedlander grant, how long has he been, did Jack Friedlander do this grant?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It's online.
So you want to report on this, but I'm trying to make sure I get the assignment right.
So we're using funds. If we're using funds, it doesn't matter if it comes from the general fund or it comes from a grant. We want to make sure if we're paying for something out of a grant, does that activity align with the objectives of the grant? And let's report back to the public. And so when I look through this grant, I don't see how this activity justifies us spending the money on it. But once that's justified, then we'll just bring it to the public.
I would just say, first of all, I haven't heard anything negative about the Crossroads training, at least certainly among those who have taken it. I guess I'll learn from myself next week when I participate. But is there a motion you want to make with regard to this item, or what? Or
Well,
are
we're
you just
just-
asking for?
This is an item for
Are you
approval.
just asking for more information?
We're saying we're spending money. I'm asking, can you let the public know that the activities that are happening here, do they justify the grant? It's a fiduciary question. It has nothing to do with Crossroads. It could have been a horticulture activity. Basically, if you're spending money, you got a grant, you told the federal government you were going to do something. We get these grants because we're in HSI. HSIs have very specific guidelines that they're doing. When you search through the Excelencia website, they have very specific things that they are doing on programs that the research is showing is closing the achievement gap for Latinos and low-income students. So Crossroads aside, if you're spending the money on something, make sure it aligns with the grant. And so that's the request.
Trustee Parker.
The issue with that is that then nothing would be on the consent agenda. And so I do think you need to narrow the category down. If it's something that you feel is of particular public interest, perhaps, that would go on to non-consent. But otherwise, what you're describing is a report on every single thing that's on the consent agenda item.
So at the last board
financial.
meeting, we talked about our equity policy. And so there's a lot of things that are all quote-unquote equity. And so If we want public support for this institution, and you're going to bring things that are controversial, like anti-racism training, just be very transparent, put it up front. What are we doing? How much money are we spending on it? It's very clear. There's nothing to get offended about. There's nothing to be upset about. This has to do with money. We are dealing with a budget crisis, and we have facilities to rebuild. If we're going to get a bond and get the public support that we need to maintain our accreditation so that our degrees are valid, then we're going to need community support. And the community would like us to make sure that we are spending our money and what we're spending it on. And if there are some equity initiatives that are controversial, just agendize them, make them public, outline how much money we're spending on them. That's all I'm saying. And I don't think that that is something unreasonable to ask.
We have a dean here who's very familiar with this, and if it's okay, she can speak to it. Dean Mora? To this particular, the use of these funds and for this
Like how it fits the
activity.
grant?
For this
'Cause
activity.
I
this
couldn't see the
particular-
fit either when I looked at it.
Well, she'll explain.
Thank you, Priscilla.
Good evening, everyone. This specific proposal, including the name and background information about the Crossroads Anti-Racism Training Organization, was submitted to the Department of Ed as a specific subcomponent of the grant and was approved in early spring prior to having any conversation about contracting with them. So it is an approved activity of the grant.
Okay, so then can we add those amendments then to the grant so it's online and so that, and I think you guys, if you're not following me, I mean, let me know, but this is something that the media and the press is still writing about our meetings. Just last week, The Independent, it still came out. We're in the process of hiring a new president. We need to go out for a bond. And so when things like this show up in a consent agenda as a line item, it gives the perception that we're not being very transparent. That's no one's fault.
Yeah, that was not deliberate on our part. I was not aware of that. If we had been aware, we wouldn't have done it that way. In the future, whenever Crossroads is on here, we'll put it in separately.
I think anything
And
that's
with the
controversial.
notation- So what's the category?
This anti-racism stuff.
Okay.
Thank you.
Trustee Croninger.
Okay, so I'm also looking at it as kind of a structural approach. A purchase order, in my mind, is, you know, a one-page document that is standardized, and you take it to your local equipment manufacturer and you fill it out and you buy the computers or you buy the chairs for the classroom and all that kind of stuff. It's very simple stuff. When we have a long list of purchase orders that are more elaborate than that, then I think you are making it less transparent. And I'm not trying to say we would pull them all. What I'm saying is that when they're separately listed, as, for example, in this case, the contract with the architect, there they are. You know, it's easy for the public to see, as opposed to looking at this kind of list, which doesn't tell me a lot either about what some of these things are. I realize you've improved it a whole lot, and I appreciate that. But at the same time, I really don't know what many of these items are for, in the sense that I would know you're buying a chair, you're buying a
So are you
computer.
suggesting that in the future we should deal with each of these individually?
I'm suggesting
More information under each one, if it's chairs or tables or services or...
chairs and tables and that sort of stuff, I think, are no big deal. That is obvious purchase order stuff. But when you get into personal services and consulting contracts, which appear to be included here, like the Workshop Consulting LLC, usually you're dealing with a scope of work and some contractual agreements, and that's what I'm suggesting is different, is a different animal.
I'm trying to find out what it is you want, though. Do you want us to put more information here, or do you want the whole contract or agreement attached?
I'd prefer to see the you know, okay, here's Innovative Workshop Consulting LLC, here's the contract with them, it's $20,000, you know, we're doing that, X, Y, Z, and it just goes right on down the list, and it makes a longer agenda, but it's easier for the public to see what it's about.
Good evening. So I've been working on this quite a bit, so I apologize. Those last few items that are on the PO report tonight are services, and it is a little confusing because we're in flux between the way we used to do it and a new process. I just met with Craig Price today to solidify what our new process will be for how we submit contracts to the board versus purchase orders.
Thank you.
So I'm just ready to provide all that information to you, and I have a really good, clear plan of how it's going to work. So I apologize, those few that you're seeing this time, it's a little confusing because you haven't seen those contracts, and that won't happen again. That was an anomaly. So going forward, you will see the contracts, just like the LPA contract is on there tonight, as its own line item with the contract attached, like you're used to. One additional change will be that when we have contracts that use our new, we're going to have a new boilerplate contract for most of our vendors. Those will come on a report very similar looking to this PO report, and you'll know that's just our boilerplate contract that our attorneys prepared for us, so there would be no need to look at those contracts. Additionally, one new change you will be seeing, but we will delineate it so it's clear, is you will start to see a lot more purchase orders. That report's going to get quite a bit longer. And the reason why is when we get a contract from a vendor and the board has, after the board has approved that contract, we want to create a purchase order for internal tracking reasons only, because when we create a purchase order, it encumbers the funds against our budget, and we want to make sure that we know every time we've got a contract that the budget is reflecting that those expenses are going to be coming out of it. So we're going to have a section where it's going to show that we have a purchase order that's coming to you that you've already approved in the form of a contract, but it's listed for internal reasons only and for budgeting reasons.
Yeah.
So you
That's
will
good.
start seeing things twice. I hope that's not too confusing, but we'll put that note on there. And you will start seeing them for services and other things that aren't chairs and whatnot like you're used to. But I'm going to bring either to the president or you
we haven't even been
a
bringing
list.
stuff because we've been trying to figure out, but we had to get this stuff because it's time sensitive. We know you want it in a different way. It's hard to please you.
Well, I
That's
think,
it. I'm just, and we're trying to do that, but you're difficult to please, I'm just telling you.
That sounds perfect.
no,
do
but
have a new
what Lindsay
process
is
and it'll be
describing
coming
We're
this
trying to
month.
get there. We've heard you.
Yeah. What Lindsay's describing sounds very helpful, and it does sound transparent, and I think it will be easier, because I know when I've seen purchase orders for something that we've already approved the contract, I don't much care, but you have a reason, and that's fine.
So I'll be bringing more on that. Besides just the contract, I want to make sure you understand the process.
Thank you for that clarification. It's
Thank
helpful.
you.
Is there a motion to?
And we can get you that other information you want about the dollar amounts and to the best of our ability.
Yeah, I think it's important. I mean, every time I read a national headline news still, or people writing about Santa Barbara City College, I just want to be able to send them to our website and say, look, this is the dollar amount that's been spent, this is the initiative, because the way we're being perceived and painted out in the national news and in the media is not helpful, and there's so many amazing things going on here. So that's my intent in that, so thank you.
Agreed.
Is there a motion to approve item 9.2?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any additional discussion? If not, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Aye, no.
Or no, aye. Craig and I
There-
oppose.
There are two noes. The motion passes.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to item 10.1. So let me state that I hereby open a public hearing at 5:45 p.m. in accordance with Title V of the California Code of Regulations, Section 58301, and Board Policy 1005 on the adoption of the budget for the fiscal year 2019-2020. Is there any public comment on this budget? We have one speaker slip from Gregory Koss. I would call him down at this time.
Good evening, Superintendent Dr. Benjamin, Trustee President Miller, and the Board of Trustees. If I may indulge just on that very last topic, I did make a public request for any Just Communities invoices and activities, and it was supplied. But my observation was it was a scattering of little, engagements. And so I don't know, it was very hard to track them because many of them were all under different budgets, some budget items, and some were grants, and some were operating budget. So I'm just saying it was a process to find them all, and to have one umbrella contract and then a PO against it sounds like the right way to go from my opinion. In any case, detailed below are my public comments for the Santa Barbara City College 2019-20 adopted budget agenda item. So again, I'm going to just have to say that the BP 6305 reserves, the district sets forth the following principles for governing the establishment and maintenance of reserve funds. Reserve fund is an established, prudent fiscal management tool which buffers cash flow fluctuations and provides a resource for contingencies and reasonable yet unforeseen operational needs. These principles are built on the expectation that 1, the district's annual budget is reflective of sound and reasonable estimate of actual revenues and expenditures, and 2, any significant increase or decrease in the reserves, this is the key point, will be purposeful, deliberate, and transparent. So according to the adopted budget, there's a handout here tonight, so just a couple highlights. Projected revenues of approximately $100 million for that fiscal year, with an operating deficit of $3.2 million. And again, really the goal should be to make $1. So it's still very distressing that it's that high. Salaries and benefits, and I know a lot of work's gone into it, but it's still quite unacceptable. Salaries and benefits are $90.4 million, or about 94% of projected revenues. And again, the reserve fund is rated such that the deficit is going to be down to $24.7 million. And I just wanted...
Not the deficit.
The reserve fund, excuse me.
Okay.
The reserve fund. Reserve fund. And also the fund balance on June 30, 2018 was $30.6 million. So we're still on a steep decline in terms of using the reserves, although it is slightly better than the initial projections that were done. So there's certainly some improvement there. But still, therefore, it's still fiscally irresponsible for the board to approve the adopted budget, as it's a violation of BP 6305 to use the reserve fund to make up for ongoing expenses and operating deficits. It's fiduciary duty to maintain prudent reserves, especially in light of certain double-digit increases in the state mandated employer expenses and flat to declining enrollments. So again, my real problem with all of this is using the reserves to make up for operating losses. You're not supposed to be doing that, and it just continues and continues. And really, the board is once again kicking the can down the road, because to my knowledge, and from everything I've read, and I appreciate the package that was put together and the projections, the 5-year projections, but really, please, in the spirit of transparency, I wish the board could really address, because I don't see any credible reason to believe the finances of SBCC will materially improve in the future. Tell us why. No one can tell us why it's going to improve. And I understand there's a lot of uncertainty with the state, funding and all that, and that's very difficult to manage a budget in that construct. I appreciate it. But I'm just saying, as a business, to try to get to earning $1, to try not to raid the reserves, I just really haven't heard any discussion on how it's going to get better. It's just going to be the same thing next year and the next year. And that's my, I think, point, that it would be really good to articulate why it's going to get better 2 years from now or 3 years from now. And and let's not use a recession or some other excuse like that. Let's figure out how to better serve the students and the programs that are very important in the community college. So anyway, that's the end of my comments, but thank you very much. And I know a lot of hard work, again, has gone into at least getting to the point where we are today. But it's still a budget crisis, by your own admission.
Thank you. That was close to a compliment.
That was a compliment.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Koss. Are there any other public comments on the budget as part of our public hearing? Hearing none, I hereby close the public hearing at 5:50 PM. Next, we'll move to consideration of the budget. I see Lindsay Moss heading back to the microphone. We can take a break, yes.
Good idea.
Let's take a, let's take a short 5-minute break.
Thank you. Cool.
In school, they wouldn't have let you go to the bathroom.
I brought handouts, but I don't know if anyone needs them for the 5-year fiscal projections, since they're an addendum, if anybody's wondering what they are. Cornelia wants one. Okay. I feel like I've been living and breathing budgets a lot. And this presentation has so much content in it. I think I'd keep us here for 3 hours if I went through every slide. So I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to zip through them, but I'll tell you, stop me if there's one you want to talk about, because some of these, we've seen these same slides a few times. So I don't want to spend time going through those unless you want me to. I want to focus on the changes from the last time we presented just a couple weeks ago on August 22nd, and focus on the finalized numbers, since tonight is the night that we would request that the Board of Trustees adopt the budget. We have an obligation to adopt a budget by September 15th of each year. So tonight's the night we'd be requesting that. And so there wouldn't be any changes beyond this unless there was something requested. So we also have a few new attachments to the board agenda that you may not be used to seeing. We have the typical PowerPoint, but we also have something that looks like this, our budget book. So we're moving towards a different type of budget workbook. We used to just attach more of a spreadsheet type attachment with about 15 pages with all the funds, and we're moving towards a more formal budget book. This is kind of draft one. The next version will have a lot of verbiage to go with it to tell the story about our budget, so that's also coming. So we intend to beef this up and make this even more detailed with additional kind of information. So this is the first version of what this is going to look like, and it replaces that spreadsheet type PDF we used to provide. We also attached, excuse me, James Zavas had a great idea of attaching a document that is similar to what Dr. Benjamin asked us to bring not too long ago, to show where all of our expenses are by kind of a natural category. So you could see where any of the budget changes were in that same format. I thought it was pretty helpful. Excuse me, all the changes from our tentative budget to our adopted budget and where some reductions have taken place. So that's another document you can peruse, and let me know if you have any questions about that one.
I thought that was very helpful.
Yeah, I'll give credit to James on that. That was a great idea. And James greatly apologizes for not being here tonight. He was going to do this presentation. He's really sick. I think we've worn him out. So he's not here, so I'll do my best to answer the questions. He definitely knows this stuff inside and out, not nearly as well as I do, so I'll do my best without him. And then the last attachment is the 5-year fiscal projections, also in a little different format than before, because normally I'd put them in a PowerPoint, but we're trying to move towards more of a report look, so a standalone report. Okay, here we go. All right. So I hope we're all familiar with the funding formula by now. I'm going to move beyond this one and the way these things have changed. I want to highlight again that the funding rates that we have for the student-centered funding formula right now, we don't have any right now. They will be available in February of 2020 for this current year. So it makes it very hard for us to not only budget this year, but project beyond this year. So that's still, we've had no change in that area with the funding rates. And again, as a reminder, that because we don't have funding rates directly from the student-centered funding formula and from the simulator that FCMAC created, for us, instead of using the simulator, we are providing an estimate of our revenues that is based on the 17-18 total computational revenue plus the COLA that we would receive in 18-19. So it makes it very difficult. Normally when we're talking about our revenues and what we're projecting to receive, we'd be basing it on data, on our FTS, on those student success and student access metrics. And we're not able to do that right now because we don't know the rates that would be applied. So it's quite an unusual dynamic. Okay, so we're basing it on an $81 million total computational revenue for 18-19. The lowest that we would be able to receive this year is 77 million. That's our hold harmless amount. So that would be the bar lowest we would get is 77 million. So we're not being as conservative as we could be. We could be all the way down there. We're basing it on what we think to be a little bit more of a realistic number. 77 million is quite below what we would expect to receive. Okay, we've talked about these things. I'm going to zip through. So since we saw you last time on August 22nd, we did do a lot more number crunching, trying to bring the deficit down as much as we possibly could. So August 22nd, I explained to the board that our adopted budget deficit for the unrestricted general fund was at $4.7 million. That was a reduction from the tentative budget, but we had to reduce the revenues also. So we reduced the revenues last time, also reduced the expenditures to keep us at about a $4.7 million deficit, whereas for the tentative we were at a 4.9. But that was multiple cuts we made to offset the reduction in revenues to keep us down at that low of a deficit. Since then, in the last couple weeks, we have gone through, worked through the budget, and gotten us down to a $3.25 million deficit. So we made multiple millions more in cuts throughout our budget. So I'll highlight some of them here, not in great detail because there are a lot of them, but we sat and went through our position control in great detail. Since over the last couple weeks, we've had faculty retirements that we know folks who are retiring, able to take money out of the budget for those positions. We have implemented a hiring freeze and freezing positions that were currently open or vacant also resulted in a savings for our budget. And then additionally, we're anticipating that we'll have continued savings due to a hiring freeze. So that totaled about $1.4 million in savings. Yes.
You were mentioning the faculty retirements, and I'm wondering, does this budget then assume that those faculty members will not be replaced according to our usual system, that they will simply not be replaced?
This year, yeah.
So there isn't going to be any kind of evaluation of need on the student need for a particular department or anything like that?
We have to go through we have a process that we
I know.
hire full-time faculty. We have to go through that. But that's savings for this year, like people retiring in December, we had budgeted for the whole year. So
Okay, so you're talking about the spring savings for that, but you're not assuming the following year?
Right. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, we did a lot of analysis of our budgets in many areas, part-time credit and non-credit faculty budgets. We ended up finding areas where we were able to reduce the budgets there to a decent amount of $286,000 there. As you've heard from Liz Auchincloss with our CSEA, we have reduced our short-term hourly labor budgets by $635,000. It's been quite a lot of effort put into making those reductions, and we're working through that. Some smaller ones, reducing our overtime budget, eliminating the cell phone stipends, eliminating the alternative transportation incentive, reducing our travel and conference budget all the way down to $50,000 by $450,000. So pretty much stopping travel for the remainder of this year. Then we have some reductions in our non-instructional supplies and our printing and duplicating. We also have some movements, so not reductions, which is nice, but movements out of the unrestricted general fund into the lottery fund, our budget for our instructional printing and duplicating and instructional supply budgets. We were able to do that because we have enough money in the restricted lottery fund to cover those expenses. We tend to be receiving more revenue in that than we expected. So there's money available there to move it out of the unrestricted general fund and put it there. So that is a nice one because we don't have to actually cut the departments, those budgets. We have a one-time savings for our insurance premium payments where we can pay them out of our insurance fund instead of on the unrestricted general fund. We can only do that once. Once we spend that reserve down, we won't be able to do it again. Then we made some more deep cuts with our construction fund and our IT refresh budgets. So we typically have been spending about $750,000 on emergency repairs throughout the year. We cut that down to $500,000 in the budget. And then for the IT refresh, we cut that down to $400,000. So really reducing the amount of IT refresh that we'll be doing throughout the year. And then the
Lindsay.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
construction.
okay.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, both of those last two, the reduction of emergency maintenance, given the condition of our facilities, how much did we spend last year?
About 750.
750. So it seems unrealistic to cut it, to me.
We just,
Well,
I understand that, but if the plumbing breaks in the admin building and floods the place, we're going to have to fix it anyway. So my question is that realistic? And
last year was a bit higher than the previous year. The previous year was closer to 500. It was a little bit of an anomaly year. I mean, fingers crossed, knock on wood, we don't have an anomaly year again. But, yeah.
And
If a room
then
floods, we have to clean
for
it up.
IT refresh, we've gone through this historically where we basically get behind on what we need to do to keep our students current with the equipment they need to do what they do. And I'm wondering, are we cutting again in that regard?
Dr. Bishop could probably answer this better, but IT refresh impacting students, it's primarily our faculty and our staff computers and our servers. So it's not equipment that's in the hands of the students
I
typically.
thought that the labs and all of those get refreshed too.
Dr. Bishop will come answer.
No one's been impacted by performance or lack of performance. In fact, we've just gotten very, very smarter about how we do refresh. If you look at computers today, most of the CPUs and other things are the same as they were 3 years ago. But what does change is solid-state drives and more memory. And so what we do, instead of buying a new box, we just replace the hard drive with a solid-state drive and add more memory, get 3 or 4 times the performance they had with the older systems. You know, replace the keyboard and the mouse. So instead of spending, $1,500 to refurbish a PC with a brand new one, which has the identical case and the same CPU, we can do that for $500. And so we've really brought down those costs dramatically. We've also looked at, enabling students to use their own devices. So we reduced the need. Students come here in our labs for 2 reasons. One, software, and secondly, to be able to print. We've now made those services available to them from any device that they own. And so they don't really need to sit at that. So we're reducing the number of computers that are sitting in labs, particularly ones that are going unused. So this has been a very well thought out strategy. We've brought those costs down year by year, and we continue to bring them down. And we'll continue to do that as we begin offering more virtual desktops to students that can be running on their own device. It means we don't really need to buy hardware to make that possible. And when we do our presentation to the board about technology, we'll show you some of the really cool things that we're doing to support our students as well as our faculty and staff.
Thank you for your financial
Thank you.
stewardship.
Yes, we appreciated that. The last one on this slide, I believe we spoke about last time, where we've removed the $250,000 transfer to the sinking fund for the turf replacement. So the total reduction in expenditures we did from the tentative to adopted budget is almost $4 million.
And I just want to add that to the extent that we can, we will still work on reducing that 3.25 even lower.
Yeah.
Done almost everything we can think of, but we still have a few other ideas.
Took the words right out of my mouth. Very true. We're not done at all. Okay, so this slide, just a refresher here. So 1920 tentative budget, I alluded to this earlier. We started with a $4.9 million deficit. It doesn't look like we have reduced as much as we nearly have, because you have to take a look at that revenue line, where not only did we reduce the expenses, but we also had to reduce the revenues to get more in line with what we're expecting from the state. So we cut quite a bit to end with a $3.2 million deficit. Okay, and since we came down to a $3.2 million deficit, this is our reserve detail slide that shows what our unrestricted general fund reserve balance is made up of. That first line is the 5% that's required by the state. Then we have a requirement that we put aside funds for our bank TLUs, and then an additional 15% to meet the board minimum reserve policy. So that gets us to an amount of $21.8 million for our minimum board reserve amount. And you can see above and beyond that, we will end this year at about $2.9 million above that minimum amount. So it's quite a bit more than the last time I was here in August. Since we've reduced the deficit, there's more remaining in the reserves. And then you can see that.
Lindsay, can you explain again? So the bank TLU, so teaching low units, the faculty have already taught, but we haven't paid them, so it's in our savings account until they want to use it for an extended vacation.
Yes, kind of in their savings account. If they want to go on a sabbatical that's, longer, that they can't make up their load, or maternity leave, anything like that. Yeah.
But we save it in-house, and then we cut the check whenever they want to use it.
Yeah,
So-
or if they don't want to work a full load one semester. Yeah.
And so about how many faculty does that make up?
Oh, gosh, I don't know off the top of my
Yeah.
head. I haven't looked at a report in a while lately. The number, what I do know is the number's pretty stagnant every year. Even though it goes up and down, it stays about the same amount.
And can only tenure faculty can bank, or adjunct too?
Full-time faculty.
Just full-time tenure?
I have a question. Just so I understand the 2.9 million, that's the amount we're above our minimum. So theoretically, if a year from now, at the end of the school year, at the end of 2020, we have a deficit of 2.9 million, then we would not have gone under the minimum.
Yeah, we'd be 3.3 above the minimum.
Yep.
We'd get higher above the minimum. Yeah, you can see it a little better. I actually kind of prefer this chart because it's just a lot easier to see. So in the blue bar on the far right here, we're above that gold line. That gold line is the minimum we were talking about. So the smaller our deficit gets, the larger that blue bar is going to get.
Lindsay, can we go back to the
You
other
bet.
slide? Two things I just wanted to mention. One is that as the budget gets smaller, the amount of required reserves gets smaller. And so in this case, that's over $600,000 in reduced amount that we need as reserves.
That's right. That's why you see here this total designated amount. It changes every year based on what our budget is.
We're not actually saving that money, we're actually reducing the amount of reserves. And then the second thing I would just point out is, as you look across the line here on the undesignated reserves, we go from 10 million to 3 million. That's basically money we have been spending because of our continuing deficit in operations, and that is of concern.
Yeah, you can see it here too, this blue bar going down. Oops. Any more questions about the reserve? Yeah.
So when we compare what the deficit number is now compared to when we last met, it's gone down a million.
It's gone from 4.7 million to 3.25.
Okay, and that happened at the same time that the revenues were going in the wrong direction.
Actually, that happened before August
Yeah,
22nd.
okay.
Yeah, I presented that last time. Between August 22nd and today, there was no change to the revenues, there was just reductions in the expenditures.
So I would say kudos to everyone who's been working on this from top to bottom, starting with Dr. Benjamin and President's Cabinet, the managers. I know that everybody has been tasked with finding ways to reduce that deficit. And so I'm, for one, very pleased to see that number down to 3.2 at this point. It's a number we want to keep getting down, but we're moving in the right direction.
Thank you. Yes, the entire team worked very hard on it. This next slide is the equipment fund and the construction fund. This is pulling from our new budget book format, so it's a little bit of a new slide for us here to go into the detail of these two funds, but I think it's useful. So you can see that our equipment fund, that's primarily where the IT refresh and/or program review funds would come from. So you can see that we're projecting that we'll spend that down all the way almost to the board minimum reserve, which is $1.5 million that's required in our board minimum. So you see that there. And then the construction fund, you can see the breakout of our main projects that we have in the construction fund. And you can see how we've pretty much shifted this campus center funding over into the PE building funding area. And you can see how we've been spending money on our state maintenance projects. We'll have spent all that money down, and we have also been spending down this $3 million category on construction for what we mentioned earlier with the emergency repairs. We also completed this energy efficiency project last year. So when you look overall at the construction fund balance, it appears to be going down a lot, but some of those were specialized categories where those funds could only be used for certain projects. And they weren't a part of the primary portion of our construction fund. And again, as a refresher, the required board minimum reserve balance in the construction fund is $2 million.
So Lindsay, the $10.8 million for Campus Center, some got used for the renovations, and we fixed the classrooms in the Campus Center, and the remainder got moved.
Correct, and I thank you for saying that. We're using a sizable portion, about $1.5 million for the voluntary seismic improvement project that's happening right now. So that's a chunk that's being used for Campus Center.
Aren't we also using the construction fund for the turf replacement and the relocation of?
Yes, that's correct.
Our human resources?
Yes, ma'am.
So that's another 2.5?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You've got it.
So that's why we are going to see zero by, which, you know, and I think that was I guess that was the concern, and now the realization that that Campus Center money would eventually just be spent on something.
Yeah, spent in.
I said that was the concern, and in putting it in a line item, the hope was that it was going to be preserved there if and when, and the reality is that obviously couldn't happen for reasons that I see. It's just, I know that that was something very close and dear to this board's heart at one point, because that was the whole reason that line item existed. I still see the graphs with the 10.8 million and all the notes of that. So then Campus Center is just back to square one, if and when, obviously.
Yeah, that was set aside at a time when we were expecting a state funding for the project.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
yeah, we would need all that additional funding to do that project.
Right.
On the positive side here, at least we're not using money set aside for that to finance ongoing expenses. So, which would not be a wise thing to do because of how we saved it in the first place. So now where we're at here is we have a lot of other obligations unseen in that for the PE building. I just refer to it as the gym.
Mike.
I thought it says it's on. It's on.
You need to be
Bring it closer, yes.
I have to eat it? They turn the gain up for me. They don't? Okay. Okay. I'm kind of concerned about where this money's going for the gym. And then what I didn't see in here is all of it didn't look real clear to me, like we can do this thing and we're feeding this money in there into it. And there's a bunch of categories, and I didn't write them down, but there's a whole bunch of things to pay for that the state's not paying for. And I didn't see any itemization of that anywhere and where that money's going to come from. And I'm wondering if you're using that roughly $8 million for that.
Are you talking
What is the
about
$8 million going to be spent on for the PE building?
So let me try to explain what the plan is at this moment anyway. Now that we have the architects hired, we can come up with better numbers on swing space and everything. So between now and the next board meeting, we're going to be working with them to come up with good numbers we hope, for what it would cost to do everything with the gym, including swing space, and then ideas on how it can be funded other than using this money. That's going to be, we're going to try to have that ready for you for the October 12 meeting as a discussion item, a report and discussion item.
Okay, it's just a lot of loose thing in limbo, a lot of loose stuff
That's
there
why
in
we
limbo.
wanna try to-
And then you want approval to start hiring and or to make a contract with an
We're a
architect.
multifaceted organization.
True.
I appreciate that we're going to get better numbers in October, and I appreciate that you guys have been doing really hard work trying to bring these deficits down. I am concerned, like Craig mentioned, that what we're looking at does not reflect what it, in the past, has been estimated as $5 to $6 million worth of uncovered costs, and that those costs have nowhere else to come from. The uncovered costs for the sports pavilion, those costs have nowhere else to come from, as far as I can see, than our reserves, our general fund reserves, which were never intended for that. So when we get to October, I think we're going to have to be looking pretty hard at those issues. And I appreciate that you're trying to make them more specific. But I am concerned. That's a big number. That's an elephant. That's not a mouse. And I'm concerned how we're going to deal with that. So.
Thank you. Yes. Oh,
One more.
one more quick. Yes, sir.
I wondered, I was, and it was just my estimation, and didn't take it from anybody else, but I looked at it here and I thought, and I said at the last board meeting that I'd really like to see, that deficit be at like 2,400, 2.5 million, 2.5. And it's about 800,000 away. I mean, I applaud you for the efforts, but if you had to cut that almost $1 million more, where were you going to go?
We're not ready to talk about it right now, but we will be later.
But we need to cut this stuff. Because
we
you want me to
know-
approve this
we
budget,
know.
but it may not work.
We're working on it. We have a plan, but we're just not ready to talk about it right now because it's not fully baked. We are.
I know, you don't want to talk about it and you want me to vote on it at the same time.
To vote on the plan.
Life is tough sometimes.
I know.
Trustee Croninger.
Well, I'm even more conservative, I think, than my colleague here, Craig. I want to see us get to a balanced budget. And my suggestion is, and I would like to make a motion to the effect that we approve the budget with the proviso that we continue to work to reduce the structural operating deficit to zero by December 12th, 2019, and amend the 1920 budget to a balanced budget at the board meeting on that date. And that's my proposal, that we continue to move in that direction.
We're not going to be able to, I can tell you right now, we can't do it by December the 19th. December the 12th. There's no way. There's no way we can do it by December the 12th. We need a later date.
When can you do it by?
I don't know about zero, 800,000 maybe by, well, we'd have to see what February does to us. It would have to be like March the 15th, because we're just kind of in limbo. February could blow all these numbers out the window.
Yeah,
I
February
pray
could
that it
be
will,
better,
in a
could be
very
worse,
positive way.
Could be the same.
Yeah, in a positive, but February just has us in a fit. We won't know anything definite. It's almost out of our control. In that way, we just keep trying to reduce in every way that we can, but still, there's February.
But I'm feeling like this is not something I want to hand to a new superintendent president, unsolved. I mean,
Well,
that's
you can feel
that's
that
why
way.
the date, basically.
Yeah, I understand, and
Yeah.
I hate to leave here and leave this with somebody, but it's going to be better than it would have been. I mean,
I know
we're
you have worked
trying.
on this.
We're
I
trying.
know.
Yeah, we're trying. I just don't know. I know we can't get to zero by December the 12th. I know we can't. We've done like $5 or $6 million already that we didn't know we could do.
And we're working on it. We're working on
Working
more.
on it.
Yeah, we're going to keep working on it.
So I don't know, Trustee Croninger, whether you made a motion or suggesting you're going to make a motion, but if I might just have you hold that for a moment while we finish the presentation. You have more to tell
Or
us?
that could be her motion. I can be done. I was pretty much done.
Okay.
I second Marcia's motion.
We can finish the presentation, though. I think that's important.
Okay. All right. So we covered the reserves. We saw that slide already. There's a lot of additional information in here that we've kept for the assumptions. We haven't talked about the assumptions of the budget in quite a while because we talked about it a bit back with the tentative budget. Anything that changed, we already went through. I just want to cruise through these really quick and make sure there's nothing that I really need to make sure we all are aware of. This slide is helpful in understanding what's going in and out of the construction fund throughout the year, so I encourage you to take a look at that. And the equipment fund, I think that's it. Only other thing I want to point out is the fiscal projections document that we provided. If you take a look at this, what we included in here, the full-time equivalent student targets for our district that we created for the next few years. The intent of putting this in here is to show that we do have FTS targets. That is 70% of our funding. It's very important that we know where we're headed with our FTS. However, these projections don't actually use those targets to calculate our revenue because of the situation I described earlier. So it's just so unusual to be talking about projections when we can't even use our FTS targets and the appropriate data to simulate what the revenues would be. So I just wanted to clarify that. When you see these FTS targets, we tried to write it up in a way that would be clear, but really we didn't use that to calculate the revenues. We're just using our TCR from 17-18 plus COLA to calculate that the revenues would be $81 million. The additional thing we did with these projections is we were very conservative in not increasing our revenues, even if we think we're going to grow, say, in non-credit or dual enrollment. We know we might want to grow, we're trying to grow, that's in our targets, but we left our revenues the same at the $81 million just to be conservative because we're just not sure what we're going to see in February. So we tried to be very conservative on the revenue side. However, we did include in the next 2 years the estimated COLA amount that's been provided to us by the state. So you do see the revenues increasing specifically by COLA. You will also see that on the expense side, we did not include the COLA. It's just on the revenue side. So it's helping with our deficit, bringing our deficit down, but we're not passing it through or doing anything for our employees. So that's something that will need to be negotiated. So you do see that we're coming to, I would call it a balanced budget because $400,000 is, a very small amount of our budget, 0.04% of our budget. So it begins to balance out in a year, 2 years. However, we spent a lot of time really studying these numbers and looking at them and seeing the impact. And we can see that there's a lot that we still need to do because there is a structural deficit. When you show a COLA increasing on the revenue side, not on the expense side, and us not increasing some of these expenses that we've pulled out that can't be permanent, we can see we do have an ongoing problem that we need to address. We're quite aware of that. It's very clear through these projections. It's also very clear that it's hard to work with numbers that we aren't sure what they're going to be until February. So after we receive the new numbers in February, we'll do projections again, and hopefully we'll have something a lot more useful that we can project out on the revenue side, whether it be good or bad. So those are the primary things I wanted to highlight with our projections. That's it.
So the COLA, it's factored in here, we're going to not pass it through, but that has to be negotiated, so that's
Yes,
if they
ma'am.
agree to it?
No, that has not been negotiated.
That's what I'm saying, that's an if they agree, if someone agrees to it?
It's an assumption that's built into the projections that has not been negotiated.
That's what I'm saying, so it's not something you can bank on, it's just, you're just
No.
going to hope folks come to the table with the heart of, got it. So if we don't pass this budget tonight, we don't cut checks. Is that what's going on?
No.
No,
If we don't pass
The
it-
state requires that you have to approve your adopted budget by September 15th of every year.
So say we don't approve it.
I don't know, I've never been in a situation, so I never checked it out. I never thought it would happen.
Trustee,
So I can't answer it.
Trustee Parker.
I don't know the
Thank
answer
you.
to that one either.
Ms. Moss, first of all, I would ask that because the five-year projection is a sort of a last-minute addition to this item, that it also be attached to the board doc so that the public can take a look at it. The five-year projection was not earlier, and it's still not, but we did get it by email, so thank you. My first question is, what is the enrollment? I know it's not at the student count date yet, but what is the current enrollment for the college as of the start of this fall?
We're down,
In
and I
credit.
think maybe it's
Is it 1% in credit?
we want you to be precise.
And she'll come to the mic.
Once she finds it. Did you have another question?
I have other questions too.
What?
So in the five-year projections, I understand that there are target enrollment numbers, but those appear to be not based on anything besides hope or a target, like we're creating the target. And maybe this is a question for Dr. Benjamin, because typically in districts, they're basing enrollment figures on birth rates, population moves. What is it that other community colleges are using to estimate, not targets, but actual enrollment?
You look at your trends, you look at the population, you look at the high school graduation rates, and those are all the things you look at in trying to do those projections.
Is that something that SBCC could move towards?
Well, we have to work on our strategic plan. That's why we're doing the mission, strategic directions. And then we have to do an environmental scan. That's the next thing. And in that environmental scan, that is the kind of information you get. And I'm hoping we can get that done before December.
Yeah, because, I mean, obviously, they didn't even get used in terms of calculating the five-year, but the five-year, it all
it's
is just a
not.
bunch of numbers that actually won't bear out to anything at this point. It feels very.
No, and it's
yeah.
part of we're working on an enrollment management plan as well, and it'll come out in that.
Okay. But I do agree with both our public comment and with fellow trustees that, we are operating with a structural deficit. It behooves us to show the public that we're working to eliminate it.
Absolutely.
I absolutely agree that December is far too soon. It would be miraculous if we were able to do it in 2 years. But we need to show the public that we're doing this. I feel like I'm just so impressed with previous boards here that you put together a reserve the way you did, because certainly this shows how important that is.
Absolutely.
Because we don't want to harm our current employees, we don't want to harm our current students, and that reserve is allowing that to happen. So kudos to all of you for that. And Dr. Ralston, you have the numbers?
So our FTS numbers move around quite a bit, and we use a calculation to compare current date and time to last year's final time. So we always understand these to be the most conservative. So we're down 2% in headcount this week, and right now the calculation on FTES is down 3%, but we know that there's no way that that's accurate. So dual enrollment calculations come in much later in the semester, and so we do a series of things. We also have all of the late enrolled classes. So that number will probably come back around to part of what we were predicting, which was a downturn in enrollment around 1% to 2%. So we are working on establishing much more finite targets for strategic enrollment management, and that's something that the college has started work on over the last 3 years, and we'll be really shaping that up as this goes forward.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, just to throw in the mix, and it's redundant, that five-year projection doesn't have the uncovered costs of based on our previous bond estimates of 5 to 6 million, the uncovered cost for PE. So it's not conservative in that respect. But I'm looking forward to October and
Yes.
what we will see.
Okay.
So we have before us a motion. I would appreciate it if you could repeat the motion. Even though it's already been seconded, I would like to hear it again before we get to discussion.
That we approve the budget with the proviso that we continue to work to reduce the structural operating deficit to zero by December 12, 2019, and amend the 2019-20 budget to a balanced budget at the board meeting on that date.
Okay, there's been a second by Trustee Gallardo. Is there a discussion? Trustee Aboud?
Yeah, I think handing the next superintendent a gutted institution is way worse than handing them this deficit, which we have built reserves for this exact purpose. I think having undesignated reserves of $6 million is a misuse of public funds in a way, because people have paid taxes expecting them to be used for the operation of the college. We're hoarding them in a reserve. We're in an emergency situation right now. I think we need to close the deficit. It's a structural deficit that needs to be fixed. But cutting everything by December 12th is probably the most fiscally irresponsible thing I've ever heard of at this college. So I would completely vote no on that motion. I think I'd amend it to say the same thing, except after the word by December 12th, just cut it all. I think I'd like to think of this budget as an investment in our students and in the work we're doing and towards higher revenues. I think that is something I want to hear more about from the consultant we had last time, is we can raise our revenue. We're not stuck with the revenue we have now thanks to the new funding formula. I mean, it's frustrating, but it also lets us raise revenue without increasing the number of students. And I think we should just, I'm ready to approve this budget, and I really thank you for making every effort you can to get it to where it is now. And I think moving forward, we should be looking at this budget as an investment towards higher revenue. Like every expense we make to educate students also should be towards making sure they graduate and making sure we're enrolling the kinds of students the state thinks we should be enrolling. And so in the future, I would like us to be more informed about how, I like this budget spread, the one that shows, by line item how we're spending money. And then I think we can take it further if we're having this fiscal committee possibly to investigate, okay, how is every dollar we're spending an investment towards stronger revenue because we're meeting the state's goal of, more low-income students, more AB 540 students, and more students succeeding. So I think I would not want to be superintendent president here if I knew that I was going to come into a gutted institution. I wouldn't take the job. I don't think anyone would. I think they would be more willing to take a job of, hey, we've done a lot of good work to reduce our deficit. There's a challenge ahead, but it's not impossible. I think that's more appealing to someone. So I would like to make an amendment to the motion to just say a motion to approve this budget and work towards closing the structural deficit. Leave it at that.
I think the complicated thing here is you look at everything.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
Is there a second to the amendment?
I think you have to ask if I'm accepting the amendment.
Do you accept the amendment?
No. So should we comment on the
No,
subject? Or where do you want
I'll
to go?
second the amendment, therefore.
Okay. So is there discussion on the motion to amend?
Yeah, I would be very uncomfortable. Is my mic on? I think so.
Oh, it is. Just
Yeah.
talk close.
I'm uncomfortable with setting the target date after the superintendent president has said we can't do it by that date. I believe in your intent. I support the intent. I haven't heard anything from anybody that says you're going to rely on us to make use of reserves to cover future deficits. What I've been hearing is there tends to be consensus. We're going to work very hard, and that it is likely to be painful. That's a term I haven't heard, but it's been implied. It's going to be painful to cut this budget further, but I think we have to do it in order to reach a balanced budget. So what I think may be missing here is a commitment to do precisely that. And having said that, I also want to acknowledge that the work that has been done thus far has to have been difficult. It just has to have been difficult. But I support the amendment simply because it gives us some elasticity in learning more. I mean, we are missing some critical elements of data, information from the state and other sources that we're going to need in order to make it a proper decision. But that said, it doesn't alleviate the conviction that what we have to do is achieve a balanced budget. And if we don't do it this year, we've got to do it next year. It can't be, as Gregory has often charged, it cannot be either seen or actualized as kicking the can down the road. We really have to do the hard work. And that does imply a willingness to engage in painful decision-making.
I also support the amendment. I don't think I can improve upon comments made by Trustee Haslam and Trustee Aboud. I think we all share the goal of getting to a zero deficit, and obviously we know that can't be done realistically by December. There are mechanisms that we haven't gone into yet that we can look at and will continue to look at to try to get to zero. I think Dr. Benjamin and those working with Dr. Benjamin, Lindsay and James, and managers across the campus have been working hard, and they've gotten us to a much better place than we were a month ago, and clearly a much better place than we were 2 months ago. So I support the amendment.
So I look at this within the so this is like your financial portfolio. So when you go out for a bond, your credit rating, your debt to ratio income. So the last time we had $31 million was back in 2014. We took money out of the reserves and we put it into Campus Center. 10.8, or is that the year? What year did we put that 10.8 million?
That was a year we had unusually high one-time revenues. And
Okay.
so we received those revenues and we put them into the construction fund.
So then that grew in 2015, and that's when
Yeah.
we went to 18 million.
Yeah.
So since that time, we have been deficit spending. We did go up a little bit in 2017 by like 2 million, and it's slowly gone down. So if you're looking at someone, this is not a house that is living within their means. We keep spending, and we keep spending, and we keep spending. And that is not okay. We are able to refinance bonds and save taxpayers millions of dollars because we have a very good credit rating. And so when you have a debt like this, we have declining enrollment, yet our expenses keep going up. And so I just think we think different on how we perceive our financial stewardship here. I'm not going to approve this budget. It is irresponsible. Look at that graph, page 18. It just keeps going down and down and down and down. We are spending money on operating things. These are ongoing expenses. And I understand a lot of the things where we're going to save money, they're contract, they're closed session items, they're personnel issues. We can't talk about them publicly. But those are all things that if and when we're spending money, eventually this is your savings account. So if everybody that has a savings account, and if you are thinking you're going to operate and pay your mortgage every month with your savings account, eventually you're going to get to the point where you're not going to be able to pay your mortgage, because you need ongoing revenue for ongoing expenses. That's the problem here. We have not been saving money. We've just keep taking it out of the savings account, keep taking it out of the savings account. That savings account is going to go away.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I wouldn't disagree with that. The issue is when, not if. We're going to have to balance the budget. Whether we want to impose restraints that will not allow the administration to explore options is really at issue. I want the administration to explore all of those options. I want them to have all of the flexibility that they need. But having said that, I would favor us saying we seem to be saying exactly the same thing. We need a balanced budget. We acknowledge that there is a structural deficit. We acknowledge that that the vicissitudes experienced by the state are such that we're having difficulty developing a budget. All of those things acknowledged, we have to have a balanced budget.
Trustee Nielsen.
Thank you. Wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have to discuss the budget? But the issue is where do we want this institution to be 5 years from now? And we want it to still be here, and we want it to be healthy, and we want to serve our district. Unfortunately, there were a lot of things that put us in this position that we had no control over and nobody was really able to foresee, or those that went ahead and made changes at a different level than we're at, didn't really foresee the consequences. We had reserves. Everybody said, why do you have so many reserves? I remember in 2014, 2015, why do you have so many dollars in reserves? What's it all there for? Why didn't you use it? And, well, the fact is that we're going through it, and I really don't mind using some reserves. The reserves are there for emergencies, and if this isn't one, I don't know what is. But what really disturbs me, what's so disturbing, is I don't see a definite plan of what we're going to cut. And the problem with cutting, especially in an institution like this, if I just had a retail business, I need to cut. I cut employees, I offer less service, I get less business. It's trade-offs. You do what you got to do. I work more hours personally. This is a different ball game here. We got young people trying to build career, people trying to improve their lives, and we're chartered to be here as a resource. We're here for a reason, not to make money for ourselves. And if we cut, and we cut teachers, or we cut staff, whatever, when we cut the quality of our end product. If you cut the quality of the end product, then you're doing a disservice to the community. Obviously, we don't have the right size here. When you say size, people think about it's how many students, or what is the right size for the college, but there's a lot more to right size than that. That's only one small aspect of it. Being the right size is spending your money efficiently, making sure that people aren't ignored, that needs are met. And this new funding formula is fantastic. It's just that they delayed the implementation of it, which is causing us problems. Otherwise, we'd be in pink. We'd have gotten more money. So now the state's held back on full implementation, and we don't know how much we're getting. But we're one of the leading colleges in the state, or if not the country, and our product is excellent. And so with this new funding formula, we should be really great in about 3 years. There's a reason to be optimistic here. What's scary is how deep into those reserves are we prepared to go? And then I, as a trustee, because I get to make the decisions on how I vote, whether I'm in the majority or not, I need to know what the options are.
I can't tell you in a public
And
meeting.
she can't tell me what are you going to cut next? They can't tell
I can't tell you in a
me.
public meeting what the options are.
Yeah.
I can't tell you in a public meeting
I
what
understand.
the options are.
There needs, if I were to approve this budget, I'd have to have a plan in front of me that said, if we don't get there by say the end of December, then this is what will be next, or something. I know there's great intent, and I don't want Lindsay's job, but I do, because I think she's doing fine. Predicting the future is hard. Nobody has a perfect crystal ball, except Warren Buffett maybe, and I don't think that his skills would apply to
Greg,
this industry.
are you disagreeing with the amendment? Stay on top.
Yeah, I think it's, I don't like all the particulars. I like half of what one board member said and half what another board member said, but I'm in favor of the amendment overall.
Okay.
Any other comments on the amendment? Trustee Croninger.
I would just say, I guess, a couple things. One is, I don't think we're talking about gutting the institution. I think that's over the top for what we're talking about. I do think that it's a significant number left to reduce, and I appreciate the difficulty that that presents. I think we're also giving ourselves too much credit here. Fundamentally, this situation, in many respects, comes from spending down the reserves over the last years that, Peter, you and I have been here, continually. I went back, I mentioned this last time, I went back to our adopted budgets for every year back to 13, 14, and you could keep on going beyond that, and every one of them had a deficit, and every time we talked about it was important not to have deficits, and yet here we are. And we are presiding over a situation where there was a drop in enrollment and the college grew, and the college expenses grew, and that just doesn't work. So, you know, continuing to say we're going to get there after year after year after year of with only one where our budget was deficit, our actual came out ahead, that was 2017, I think, that's not very comfortable for me at this point, and I feel responsible for why we are here. I don't think it's an emergency. I think it's an emergency, or if it is an emergency, it's something that we caused. We allowed it to happen by not dealing with these issues, which have nothing to do with what Dr. Benjamin has been doing, trying to deal with this, or Lindsay for that matter. Everybody is trying to deal with this, but we have ourselves not stepped up to doing what we need to do. And that's my concern. I mean, it isn't us who kept these reserves. We didn't accumulate these reserves. That was the board before us who accumulated reserves, and we have spent them down. Now, we spent 3 years going through participatory governance and coming up with the current board policy on how much reserves, with the idea that there will be recessions and we will need them to deal with that so we don't have to lay people off. But we didn't do more than that. We didn't ever add to those reserves in any significant way. Arguably, when we got the windfall in that 1 year, we set aside the campus center. But frankly, that was a windfall. That was a bizarre amount of money in 1 year. And we still adopted a negative deficit budget that year because we moved it over to the construction fund. So I feel responsible here, and I feel like it's time to stop saying we're going to do it tomorrow, we're going to do it next year, because the recession is yet to come. We're in the strong economy right now.
Any other comments before we vote on the amendment?
I just have a question. Lindsay, when you say or not you, but when it's written in here in the narrative that the CalPERS should reduce the employer rates, so this is all just assuming on what the state's going to still do, the PERS STRS. So this could be worse, potentially.
Yeah, this is what our expectations are.
Yeah, and so if you go back to this graph, I mean, our biggest liability here is pensions.
Yeah.
So
And
this,
that has been the case
and
for the
that's
last
a
few
huge
years.
piece, and we've been watching that. And so this conversation started years ago in fiscal, and those of us that were there, and my thing is every year it's okay, we'll get to it, we'll get to it, we'll get to it. Well, at some point you just have to say stop, and somebody has to get it. And if this table doesn't say stop, it's never going to stop. And this institution is not going to, I mean, it took years to build up reserves, and we've been spending them really quickly. I've only been on the board 7 years, and it's like every year, gone, gone, gone. So I'm ready to just say stop, and I'm not approving this budget.
So any other comment on the amendment? Okay, I would call for a vote. All those in favor of the amendment?
Yes.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
No.
I didn't catch your vote, Trustee Nielsen.
I'm confused to what I'm voting on.
The amendment.
Are you approving the budget?
Are we approving the budget or not?
We're approving the amendment by Trustee Aboud to amend the motion that was made by Trustee Croninger.
So what's your
Thank you.
motion?
No.
My motion was to approve the budget and work towards closing the structural deficit, but without an end date or anything that followed the word by in March's
There's
motion.
got to be a deadline. No.
Okay, okay, so the amendment passes. So that leaves us with an amended motion, and I don't know, I guess we take a vote on the motion. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
No.
Okay, motion passes as amended.
Mr. President,
Yes, Vice President.
I don't think anybody listening to this conversation could possibly conclude that we have anything like the intention of kicking that can down the road. It seems like we are unanimous on the notion that we must achieve a balanced budget. We may be concerned about having a date certain by which that happens, but I don't think there's any doubt as to our resolve in the long run. I think that message is clear.
Thank you for that. So we move on to item 10.2. And item 10.2 is an action item. It's recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the use of the $12,255,109 of education protection account proceeds resulting from the passage of Proposition 55 to be accounted for as an instructional salaries and benefits as presented. Do we have a
So moved.
No,
presentation?
this is something you do every year for them.
Yeah, so this does not, I don't know how to describe it, it does not affect our
It's already
revenue or
included in the
expense.
budget.
It's already incorporated, and it's a procedural.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All those, any discussion?
No, I just have a question. So there's just a minimum requirement to just put a line item, just tell us what you're doing, not like it just says, the description seems
Yeah,
a
we
little
have to-
fancier, like, oh, we're going to report to the public, Prop 30, blah, 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 but then it just says, line
Yes,
item.
yes.
So that's the minimum that's required?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Item 11.1 is review changes to administrative policies 2340, dealing with agendas, and 2431, proposed procedure for selection of the superintendent president, and changes to board policy 2740, board education. Would note that these three items were presented to the board at our August 8 meeting for review and discussion, so this is a second consideration. And not, I don't believe it's an action item.
It's not, it's just, two of these grew out of your retreat and are here because of accreditation requirements.
Right.
And you responded, we drafted some language, you responded, we think we've incorporated that language into these, and then we're here for more feedback, so that these then, if you say okay tonight, they start through the approval process. And you are the initiators of these.
So we have comment.
So we need feedback.
Do you have feedback, Trustee Croninger?
Well, the only comment I would have is on the changes to AP 2340 on agendas. We've switched from the superintendent president may recommend an alternate process to may provide an alternate process. And listening to the reactions to the change here, I think people misconstrued it in the sense that we were trying to make it more difficult for them to get an item on the agenda. So I was wondering about which we're not. I mean, it's just the idea that you might be asking for something that won't get you where you want to go, and the president can help you get where you want to go. And you don't you still have the right to get it on the agenda if you disagree.
Right.
So that, I think, is what we're trying to say here, and I was wondering whether the word suggest rather than provide would be a little softer and perhaps convey that. Because it is a right to put it on the agenda.
Yeah,
Any other comment?
Yeah, I would totally agree with Trustee
Yeah.
Croninger. I think suggest is a nice alternative.
You know, I don't have a problem with that either. I think that's a,
Why do we just not change it? Why are we changing it again? It just seems like just leave it so that you don't get this perception that it's trying to be more difficult. I mean, when they reach this, they make the request, the superintendent can phone, you know, they can still talk to them. To me, this just seems a little unnecessary, a little bureaucratic. It's just all this extra verbiage in there. The public has a right to put something on the agenda. The president can say, oh, actually, this is already online, or whatever. I don't know. I don't see a need for it.
do you have a comment, Trustee Nielsen?
Yeah, I think it's only appropriate because some board members looked at it and went, well, we could make it more clear to the public, but no matter what you do, you're going to leave something. I didn't see personally a real need to change anything. I think it's just be nice, talk to people, be open, and do your jobs, and there's no need for all this. But if you want to put that in there, I have absolutely no objections at all. Okay. You know, if it makes you feel better, let's get on with what we need to do.
Any other comments, feedback on the proposed changes? Trustee Parker.
I don't know if are we giving feedback on all of them right now?
Yes.
Just
Yes.
on BP 2740, Board Education, just that in that first red line paragraph, that the word board is repeated quite a bit. And if you want to take a look through and see if you could cull a few of those, because it's a little repetitive, but that's my only suggestion.
Any other helpful suggestions?
Just the BP 2740, where it says the superintendent president shall ensure each new board member. Can we just say the superintendent president will, something more lenient and open? This seems like a lot. Like, what if you get 3 board members at once next 2020? And then now the superintendent has to go around and introduce the board to every union representative, faculty, staff.
Well, you provide the orientation at the same time for all of them. It's just one.
Because this says the
Training
superintendent
session.
shall ensure each new member receives an orientation consisting of meetings with union representatives, faculty, staff, students, college managers, and supervisors.
Yeah, I've done this before. I do it. I don't do it until I can get all of them
So everybody,
together
okay.
at one time.
Good. So it's not going to be like
No,
just
it won't
a
be separate.
month of.
I would
okay.
hope not.
Okay. Because you said we're kind of hard to please, so you know.
Absolutely.
Okay, any other comments? I think that we've,
Okay, so we'll start. They'll end up back to you,
yep.
but we're ready to move them forward with these changes.
With that, we'll move on to item 11.2, establishment of a fiscal committee. And this agenda item arose from requests at the last board meeting by trustees Croninger and Nielsen that we consider a committee, a fiscal committee, to deal with fiscal matters. I understand before my time there was a standing committee that existed for a number of time, for a period of time, and I don't know whether the concept under discussion tonight is a standing committee or an ad hoc committee, although I guess I've heard that it's an ad hoc committee that's being proposed, but I would leave it to Trustee Croninger or Trustee Nielsen to let us know their thoughts.
Well, it would be a short-term committee in my mind. It would not be long-term, which is your standing committee. But at the same time, I think that it might be important for the committee to allow for participation so that our those on campus who are interested in coming and talking about these fiscal issues would have that opportunity, and it would not be not available to them, which an ad hoc committee sometimes is. So we did that a bit with the ad hoc committee we had a while ago, where it was publicly, there were office hours for it. But I'm not suggesting the office hours idea, but I am suggesting that we make the information about meetings publicly available so people can come without getting into Brown Act Standing Committee.
And what would be the purpose or charter of the committee or goals of the committee?
I think it would be to support and assist the process which the whole college and our administration are going through in balancing this budget, working toward balancing the budget, and also not only for this year, but the important aspect of coming to terms with what is sustainable. I mean, we're talking about things that we're doing right now, some of which are one-time, some of which are not going to be long-term sustainable or presumably are not wanted to be sustainable long-term. So we've got to make that transition to something that will last. I mean, we've got $2.5 million in reductions that come from keeping the COLA. I don't think our employee groups want that to be our going forward plan. So thinking about how we're going to get there in a bigger picture, I think is important. And some of the things that are still in front of us here that can be done to balance this budget, I think it will be a benefit to have our support on those things. And I view the committee's obligation is to talk about it in greater depth, come back to the board and say, this is what we talked about, this is what we're thinking, that kind of thing, which we did with standing committees, typically.
And I want to make sure, though, so does that mean that the staff, how does that affect what we do as a staff in terms of working on the budget and bringing recommendations to the board?
It just takes more of your staff's time.
Well, that's my concern. That's my
No,
concern.
I meant, are we working in tandem with this committee, or are we still doing our job of trying to find ways to balance the budget?
I would say both. I mean, nobody's trying to stop you from doing the job of balancing the budget. What you would be doing at some point is interacting with the committee about, okay, here's what we're working on, and here's what we're thinking about X issue, whether it's the balance it this year or the how are we going to transition to something that's sustainable.
So are you going to agendize
Trustee
this?
Abood.
I think I generally agree with this purpose, or with the establishment of this committee, but I think I would feel comfortable if we had like a charter or charge and kind of lists of goals, just a document explaining what we're going to do, maybe like clearing out what the interaction between staff and this committee is, just so we can have it on paper. I think we did that with the committee we made like a year ago. We had a resolution or a document that kind of laid out its purpose and goals, so maybe we can brainstorm continually right now and then approve it next meeting.
Sounds like a good idea to me. Any other comments?
I was thinking more of, which it is going to be more staff, but more of standing committee where it is going to be agendized. And the only reason I was saying that is because then that clears up the whole transparency issue.
I think agendized is fine.
Oh, so not an ad hoc, so a full-on agendized committee on
I
campus.
think you can agendize an ad hoc committee. I don't think this is.
Yeah.
Is your microphone on? You're not coming.
Low today.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I was just saying, I think you can put out in a
You have to have
public
an agenda.
agenda for an ad hoc committee. It's just not necessarily done, but you can choose to.
It just doesn't have to be recorded, just minutes.
It depends on how many members are on it.
3.
Just 3. Okay.
No more.
Trustee Haslam, did you have a comment?
My concern is that I don't want to do anything that will interfere or be seen as interfering with the administration's process of reducing spending. And I'm a little concerned about the timing of it. I'd feel more comfortable about establishing such an ad hoc committee after the administration has done what it says it is going to do and comes up short. And then I think there may be a need to take immediate action and support the intention of the 7 elected members of the board.
So like maybe in February when our revenue comes in?
I didn't hear you.
I said maybe like in February when the revenue comes in?
Yeah.
So could we vote to create it in commence, or in, I mean, it could begin in February, and that way it's just done, and we don't have to agendize this again. Not to do, I'm sensitive to both, like, we're gonna add another meeting, agendize it, and all of that stuff, but I do think that we do need more, it just seems like things are changing quickly, you're getting information, you're figuring things out. It's gonna help us help you when we're out there and speakers to say, yeah, this is sort of, we're tracking, and folks can, it's agendized and that there's minutes. I see the benefit of that. I'm mindful, obviously, of time. I'm the one that was like, get rid of all these committees because everybody can be on the same page. You guys remember that? And I was on all of them, and it wasn't because I was on all of them, but there was an intimate time where I mean, we got to speak to Cornelia, Kim Monda came. There were some key faculty members that we grew to respect, and their input in helping us look at this stuff, it was very valuable, I thought, and it's because we were in that little room around that table. It was nice.
Yeah,
I agree. I think it is premature, but Trustee Nielsen, do you have a comment?
I think that even if we put an end date, like in February, to discontinue it or whatever, I think a regular committee that, where the, since you can only have 3 of us there, and probably more than 3 of us are very, very interested in every scrap of information or understanding we could get, at least we could listen to the meeting. And, if we can't make the meetings, whatever. But I really feel that instead of us telling the president what we want, that our president knows what we want. I don't think we have to do that, but what we do need from her is like let the president tell us how we can help the best, and tell us where she's going with this so that we understand what's going on, and so that we're working together, not trying to create a hardship for your staff. We don't need you to repeat. We don't need a fiscal committee where we repeat the dog and pony shows for the board, which those aren't really shows. But before it got, the committee meetings kind of got they were just sort of routine things, whether we needed to be there or not. And people came in and people went out, and we didn't seem to accomplish a lot except learn things. So the chance to sit down and talk to people, since we don't have offices on this campus, it's hard when we're going through something like this, making decisions that affect the lives of employees and students. And we're not here every day, and we don't have the kind of intimate contact. And so a committee like that can provide more information. But it could get out of control if it was allowed to. And I don't want that kind of out-of-control committee. I want something where we can ask questions and discuss what's going on.
Trustee Parker, do you have a comment?
Yes. The role of the board is to set vision, mission, direction. A huge important area for us is the budget, where we set the direction of what we want to have happen, which we have done very clearly tonight. And I'm concerned when we move into this type of ad hoc or standing committee that we then are very tempted in a small group to step into the administrative role of saying you should do this or you should do that. That's the administration's job. And I also feel like the budget is so important that all 7 of us need to have an equal voice in it. And I would much rather, if we get to the point where February comes and it is looking bad, that we have a special workshop where the 7 of us go into great detail on the budget. And that it's not something where 3 of us are getting more information than 4 of us. That doesn't sit right with me. And while I value everybody's opinions, it's still, I would have to be doing my own due diligence anyway. And so to me, I just don't feel like this is the right direction to go in terms of getting more into the meat of the financial issues here at the school. So.
I think you have well said what's been concerning me about the idea, because it is our, if not our most important responsibility, certainly right up there. Picking a new president would be one that may be higher, but the budget is perhaps the most important thing we do. So I think it is something that all 7 of us have to hear the information, provide our comments, interact with each other. So I think it is an area where a committee of the whole makes more sense than a standing committee or ad hoc committee. Trustee Croninger.
I'm just going to suggest that it's harder probably for you, Kate, and for you, Robert, who have not been on the fiscal committee that we had in the past, to understand how that operated. But I felt like it was helpful. We had substantive discussions about things, as Veronica's referenced, like the increasing PERS liability and what should we be thinking about that. And these are big fundamental issues. These are not small issues. And I'm not suggesting that everybody shouldn't be involved. In fact, I was the one who kind of pushed getting rid of the committees too, because I felt everybody on the board needed to understand the budget. Everybody on the board needed to understand facilities, and therefore we would try not having those committees. But right now, I feel like there's an urgency to supporting the administration in moving forward with some things that may be difficult to get to without greater depth of discussion. And it also provides that additional informality to the discussion that I think was extremely appreciated by members of our campus community, that they felt they could come and say what they think to us about the various difficult things that we're grappling with. I thought the committee worked well on those levels, and I appreciate the importance of everybody understanding what's going on too.
Thank you. Trustee Aboud.
Just to follow up, like in terms of my experience with the fiscal committee, I never was on it, and I was a new board member, and I had no idea what was going on with the budget, and I felt unable to meaningfully participate, unlike I did today. I don't think a board member, if we had a fiscal committee and we had the discussion we had today, someone not on the fiscal committee might find it challenging to actually, conduct business on such an important issue. So I agree with what Kate said. I think if we were going to do this, it would need to have a very limited scope, and I think waiting longer to establish it is better. But in general, we should all just be doing workshops, committee of the whole. We could have the finance committee be all of us, but it wouldn't make anything different. I think we all need to just be on this. But I felt that being a board member not on the fiscal committee was just very uninformative. It was just very hard to get the same level of information as the other board members, even though it was public. You can't be there. The discussion, it felt like, well, the fiscal committee discussed it. It's coming to the board. This is what's happening. It didn't feel like the board was really involved. The other 4 of us didn't feel very involved with what those decisions were. And I cannot go to the fiscal committee and talk during the meeting because of the Brown Act.
I found it hard being on the committee. I felt like there were other board members that, at the time, that really weren't paying as much attention as they probably should have. And by getting rid of the committee, that changed a lot of things. But we still don't have the workshops, the study sessions where we could, right now, if we had one board meeting a month and then we had a study session once a month, and the study session right now would be on the budget, because that's the hardest thing. But we're not doing that. Why? I'm not the board president, I'm just a trustee, and I think we should have workshops once a month on this budget so that everybody's apprised of exactly where we're at. And maybe we could even agree and all vote closer to the same. But we're not going to get there if we don't communicate with each other and everybody increases their understanding. I think we have goals in common, like Peter said, but we're disagreeing on how to get there. Maybe, maybe not.
Maybe not. I would just like to give the administration an opportunity to do what we have just
Yeah, I
now
don't wanna-
collectively
I don't wanna get
instructed
in
it
the
to do.
weeds. I just
maybe
want the budget balanced.
Get out of their way for a while. I'm very concerned about how much time we impose on the administrative structure. So, anyway, that's
So,
my take.
Trustee Croninger, did
Well, I still think it would be useful. I certainly am not against a committee of the whole to discuss these issues. I just feel like we need to do more to support the big picture directions that need to bring the college into balance with its budget, basically. And those are some pretty tough decisions that we haven't talked about in this budget
maybe we need,
discussion.
maybe we need to agendize for future meetings specific budget issues, such as STIRS and CalPERS or COLA or whatever it is. Maybe we
could.
try
I
to
mean,
do that.
there's an interaction there to get to what are the issues that we haven't had.
I know I would appreciate learning more about each of those issues. And anyway, Trustee Parker.
I do think, as Trustee Croninger has mentioned, that the format makes a big difference, and that members of the college community and the community at large would, if we would need to do this at a different format. I don't think it's as useful to have it as an agenda item, but certainly given the state of our budget, that it would behoove us to have a workshop in the near future, but that's not on this dais, that it's someplace where we can just sit around a table on this campus and include the members of the community in the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, the conversation was a conversation in those committees. It was not this formality where no one else can come up in the middle and talk to us.
So is there a consensus to move on and review this at a future meeting, or do you have a motion you want to?
I'd like to make a motion now, maybe amending what Marcia said. Let's establish a committee, have a meeting, and decide exactly what's going to happen, and let's get started. And maybe we'll decide not to do it. You know, I don't know, but we need to do, some of us feel a need for it. Maybe, I don't think it hurts at this point.
You mean develop a workshop agenda?
Yeah, let's just have a meeting and start. And see where we're going. And if we get off base, then we'll
Have a meeting.
We'll figure it out.
Have a meeting of what?
Like, I guess, to set up what you would do, and at that first meeting, Lindsay can come back and say, well, you guys can meet every 2 weeks, but guess what? I'm not going to have anything for you. Then we'll say, okay, well, thanks. Or maybe she'll say, oh, I have this for further detailed study. I mean, I don't know. If we're going to go out for a bond, the more we communicate what is going on in the fiscal side of our house, the better. And I see this as a strategic thing to say we are staying on top of that side of the house and making sure that things are in line. But then again, if there's nothing, if staff has nothing for us, then it's nothing for us. But if they have nothing, goodness, I've learned so much from Googling. Like, I wasn't on the fiscal committee the first term, and I looked at the agenda and I Googled, and everything is online, believe it or not. And so you can find it, and if you can Google and find another college's document before your document is due, and you can read their document and compare it, and you can PDF it, and it's just amazing, the tools and resources that are out there for us to learn these things. So even if we just meet and staff's not preparing anything for us, we're learning more about these issues, and that's important. This financial mess is not going to get any better, and the better we become at communicating with the public, it's going to help us, because I am really concerned about our accreditation, about our facilities, and the need for a comprehensive community support in support of our mission.
So are you making an argument in favor of having a committee or in
Yes.
favor of?
In favor of having a committee.
I don't think it hurts.
So let me suggest that that we take this up at the next meeting with a specific proposal that outlines the goals, the kind of the charter. What is it? What is it we're going to do?
Just
Let's
take the mission
set up
from
a
the,
committee
we
and
had
get
a
it, done,
mission.
and have 3 people volunteer to be on it, and let's get started.
We can use
You
the
know, why
same
put it
mission.
off for another month?
And to do what? What's the purpose?
Just take the mission from
I
the
thought
standing
that's
committee
what we were
had.
talking about.
Just Google it, it's online already.
Yeah.
We already had a fiscal committee, just take that same mission. We had a mission for ed policies, and we had a mission for facilities.
And it's an ad hoc committee or a
It was a standing committee.
And this would be a standing committee? Or an ad hoc committee? What are you proposing?
Standing committee.
You know what, I would say standing committee because I don't see this changing in the near future. With the new funding formula, you don't have to meet. There were times where Lori would tell us there's nothing on the agenda and we didn't meet.
Okay. Does somebody have a specific motion?
I make a motion to establish a standing committee,
A
standing fiscal committee. And we need 3 names
Is there a
from
second?
people on the board.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
No.
No. Motion's denied.
Well, if you don't try, you don't win.
I would like to move on to item 11.3, report from board members.
Before we move on, could I just ask whether there is something more concrete in the other suggestions that have been made? Or are the people who are against this idea just saying, don't do anything at this point? I thought I heard other suggestions.
I'm just uncomfortable about the timing. I think we have provided substantial input tonight. It is, to me at least, very clear what we have said. And it has been unanimous. How we get there is really an issue. So I think I'd like the administration to hear that and then, with deference to it, step out of the way, let them do their job.
I agree with that. It's premature. Perhaps there was a suggestion that we wait until we get more concrete revenue information in February. That would seem like a good time to reconsider having a committee, or we could decide later to do it before then. But right now, to me, is very much premature. The administration is in the middle of this process. They're still looking at ways to cut the deficit. And I don't want us to get in their way. I don't want us to require staff time to help facilitate this committee. Trustee Parker.
I would appreciate it if you, President Miller, and Dr. Benjamin could have a conversation about when a good time is to have a more in-depth discussion about what's going on with our budget for the current year and for future years. Whether that's a committee, whether that's a workshop. I agree that it's premature, but I don't think it's premature to talk about when to talk about it.
Sounds so bureaucratic, sorry to say that, but I think it was somebody said, politicians meet to meet, and then they meet again to talk about what they met for. I think it's settled. We voted, we stand as a whole, budget passed, we don't need a committee. I think, Peter, that the difference is we all want a budget, but then there's some of us that expect the budget to be balanced. And I expect policies to be enforced, and I expect a balanced budget. And that's just not something I want and I need, I expect it. And I think that is my fiduciary responsibility to do that here. And I think that that's what's, it's 3 out of 4 that are communicating that. And that's where the fine line difference is. And there is a very difference. 3 of us expect it, the 4 of us want it.
So Trustee Parker, I take your suggestion seriously, and Dr. Benjamin and I will discuss whether we might be able to have some sort of workshop in the future.
Thank you very much, but the need is now not in October or the next meeting or February. The need for improved unity and understanding on this board is now, not in February. But 4 of you disagree with what I said, and I respect that. So it just means that if we don't have that meeting, we have to gather information in another way, and it's doable. Thanks.
Yeah.
Trustee Croninger.
I would just add that I also respect differing opinions here. I do not agree with the idea that we should wait till February because it's too late, I think, to balance a budget in a fiscal year. I mean, it's over by then. And the long-term planning for the next year is, I feel like many of the things we're doing here that are listed are Band-Aids. They're not permanent solutions. I think we have to do both of those.
Okay, I would like to move on to item 11.3, if we might. Report from board members, and it's now 7:35, so I'm not going to pass over the agenda item, but maybe if we could all keep the hour in mind.
I just want to thank David, Elizabeth, and Pamela, Margaret, Josh, Dr. Benjamin. It was a phenomenal Guided Pathways conference, and with that spirit and just tenacity that I am pushing for a balanced budget, because the ideas around the table and the opportunity for our students and all the things that we want to fulfill our mission, especially for the very demographic that lives in this community, the students that I serve, the students that are going to be here, their parents, we've got to get it together. And Guided Pathways is such an important initiative to get the things we need done. And I want to pour every dollar into that, and I want to rebuild our facilities, and I want to see an institution that, goodness, my grandchildren will benefit from. And that is the potential. The ideas are on the table. Those people were focused on teaching and learning. It was so encouraging to be with them, to spend time with them, to share a meal with them, and that they are heading in the direction where all the research points that you develop the capacity of that person in front of that student, and that's how you close achievement gaps. And so in that spirit, I can conclude my comments and say thank you, and I'm looking forward to pouring every dollar into Guided Pathways.
Thank you for those comments. Sounded like it was an excellent meeting. Anybody else have anything to report? Dr. Hasland.
Briefly, I attended the 9/11 concert last night, and this is an annual event put on by the Sister Cities Association or Board of Directors for the City of Santa Barbara. And last night, our own David Starkey and his wife Sandy gave I thought, a really poignant presentation in memory of those who perished 18 years ago. I was very proud of our faculty.
Anybody else? If not, we'll move on to item 13.1, an informational agenda item, health benefits reimbursement rates. Do we have a?
No, it's just
It's
information.
information.
Just information.
So the board can see what the rates are.
Okay.
See that part of the budget.
Okay.
Yeah, they're going up quite a bit.
Any discussion or comments?
It's a nice benefit we offer to our employees.
I noticed in the material about the health benefits that there's like zero copays or anything. Can we save a little, can we save a little bit, or is that in some labor contract or something?
Talk about it.
Can't control it?
Can't
We
talk
can't talk
about
about it in
Okay.
open session.
So, Trustee Croninger.
Maybe this gets the same answer, but I'm wondering what's typical for other community colleges.
I can see if I can get, if the league has some information.
How much they cover.
Yeah, by
Yeah.
district.
Okay.
And if not, I can get it within our region.
Is there a motion to move to closed session? We have two items.
So move.
Is there a second?
Third.
Did I hear a second?
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.